And if Gardner, would you be leading us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Certainly.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you all. Thank you, Gardner. First, tonight the clerk is going to be announcing the agenda items. And so, Madam Clerk, would you start with number 1, please?
Sure. Approval of the minutes of the May 16, 2023 meeting.
So moved.
Seconded?
Thank you. Is there discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you. It is a vote.
New public business.
At this point, the board welcomes individual comments from anybody in the audience, limited to 2 minutes. Please do not ask for a vote. This is not a matter for vote. It's for information that a citizen wishes the board to have, and it's limited to 2 minutes, if you would, please. Hi, would you go to the microphone and identify yourself, please?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is it Judy?
Yes.
Welcome, Judy.
Hello, my name is Judy Freehan, and I am a recent retiree from the Danvers Recreation Department 6 days ago. I am here tonight to ask what, if anything, has been done since the issue of the toxic culture and atmosphere and poor employee retention within the town had been brought to your attention. I am not aware of any action that had been taken or any discussion regarding this issue since it was presented by Mark Lentini at the November 2022 Select Board meeting. My letter was one of the 5 letters presented to the board, and I have not been contacted, nor have I been asked for clarification in regards to any part of my letter. As a matter of fact, I believe not one of us 5 people who stepped up have been asked for clarification or input as to what can be done to fix this crucial problem. It is my opinion, and I believe that Jen Brager was instructed by town council not to interact with me and to avoid crossing paths with me on multiple occasions. She broke the HIPAA laws by requesting information from my physician, yet had no repercussions for doing so. She tries to bully people and uses intimidation to feel powerful. When she tried this tactic with me, I had just returned to work from heart surgery. I was not 100% better, and she took advantage of that, expecting me to surrender physician-patient privilege to appease her unlawful requests. On my last day of working at Town Hall, I had an exit interview with Steve Bartha. He listened to my concerns about the situation at work and took my input as constructive, and he was not offended by my frankness. I want to publicly thank him for that. And thankfully, we both survived that meeting, and there was no need for the police to be involved. I have been a Danvers resident for 25 years. I moved to Danvers so my daughter could attend the Danvers Public Schools. I started working for the town in 2004 after working for Verizon for 26 years. I took an early retirement from Verizon so I could be closer to home for my elementary school-aged daughter. Working for the town gave me the opportunity to be available in case my daughter needed me and to make sure she was safe. To this day, I am thankful for that opportunity. However, in my almost 20 years of employment at the town of Danvers, I have never experienced such hostility and discomfort each and every day as I have over the past 12 months. The current workforce culture expedited my decision to retire from the town of Danvers. I proudly retired last week on June 1st with 19 years and 1 month of service. As Mr. Lentini noted in his decision to vacate his position at the town of Danvers, it's been a significant effort for me to come to work every day. I loved my job and appreciated that the majority of the people working at Town Hall valued collaboration, and we consistently worked as a team and helped each other out. There continues to be a lack of accountability townwide, leading to superiority complex for a few of the town executive team. I find it ironic that the person who is responsible for this mass exodus and poor morale at Danvers Town Hall is a speaker at the MMA Reframing Recruitment Seminar. When Mr. Lentini presented the letter to the Select Board in November 2022, it was stated by town management person that increase in incidents employees leaving Danvers was due to employees moving on for bigger and better opportunities. After discussing this with many of those individuals, I can confidently tell you in most cases, that's not the reason. I am hoping that the board does what they are tasked to do as elected officials. Take action on behalf of the citizens of Danvers. I want you to investigate the prolonged bullying, intimidation by Ms. Breaker. As a resident voter, I voted for each of you numerous times to become a select board member. At this point, I will not hold back when it comes time for you to run for re-election for the select board position. You were voted in to represent the citizens of Danvers and do what's best for the town. By not taking action, you are letting the toxic environment continue as you protect the instigator. By not taking action, you let down the people you should be representing. By not taking action, you are burying your head in the sand, yet inaction is not going to make the problem disappear. I implore you to do your job that you were elected to do. Thank you.
Judy, thank you for a very articulate statement. I will pay attention to it, and your interest is noted, and the letter will be part of the record of the meeting tonight. Thank you. Is there any other citizen who would?
David, could I make a motion that maybe we break for executive session and talk about this?
Sure, you don't have to make a motion. You can.
We can break for
Mr. Chairman,
executive
point of
session
order.
Thank you, guys.
and talk about this.
If we
with
are to
Judy.
discuss an employee or employee's issues, by law, we have to contact and invite that employee or to be a participant, and they have the right to have representation in executive session. This is, the discussion of an employee is not appropriate in open forum, you're correct, but we cannot go into executive session on the fly like that. We have to declare why we're going to executive session and invite the person we're speaking about to be there. They have rights of protection as well.
I think that's good. I think we should have that. I'd like to make a motion to set a date for an executive session and have Judy
Mr.
be there.
Chairman, we don't take votes on new
No.
public business. We'll take it under advisement.
Under
is
Thank you.
advisement.
my
There's no votes tonight.
recommendation.
Thank you, Dan, and thank you, Gardner, for, this is my first kind of live meeting as chair, and I appreciate both of you as past chairs to be sitting right next to me, because I will rely upon both of you. Thank you. Where is Judy? Thank you for your letter, and we will move forward. Is there any other citizen? Mr. Bradstreet? Thank you, Judy.
Bill Bradstreet, Town Meeting Member, Precinct 1. Two
Good
things if
good
I...
evening, Mr. Bradstreet.
Good evening to you too, sir.
Can I call you Bill?
Yes, you may.
Publicly, thank you.
Other people call me worse, but Bill is fine. Two things. Memorial Day is very important to the country, as it is to Danvers. Could we please do something about the sound system that was provided to the speakers? The only thing that was audible to me was when the muskets were fired.
Thank you. I had my hearing aid turned up as loud as I could, and that didn't help. So your comment is noted.
Just tell me you're working on it.
We're working on it.
Okay.
No,
The oth-
Yes.
yeah, we're working on it.
The other thing is Danvers is Danvers. We're proud of our town. I'd like to think most of us are. Once in a while, there were little things that need attention. You speak to someone, they're taken care of. Some things seem to last a long time. No one mentions them or picks them up. This is a small one. The end of Ash Street, where it meets Purchase Street, there's a traffic island that looks awful.
Hold on, please. Purchase at the end of Ash.
Yes.
Got you. I know where it is, yeah.
That ugly green traffic island, could we please do something to make it look better so that when someone from out of town comes in, they don't look at it and go, what is wrong with Danvers?
Your comment is noted, and I will follow up on that.
And that's it for tonight, and thank you. Just as long as you tell me you're working on it.
Well, I drive into Ash Street all the time from Purchase, so I know what you're talking about. Thank you, Mr. Bradstreet.
Thank you.
Are there any other citizen comments? If not, Madam Clerk, could you proceed to the next agenda item?
Sure. The board will consider a reappointment and a new appointment to the Human Rights and Inclusion Committee.
Thank you. Town Manager, I believe, makes the recommendation. Steve, can you speak to that?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. There's two recommendations tonight. The first is a reappointment of HRIC member Jorge Salazar, and the second is a new appointment of a relatively new resident, Karen Greisdorf. I hope I pronounced the last name correct, Greisdorf. Karen is the Director of Communications for the Massachusetts Communities Action Network. She's attended a number of the meetings of the HRIC, and we're joined tonight by the Chair, Teacher Shea Joko, and Jasmine Ramon, our DEI Director. And so I would, with your permission, invite Karen up to introduce herself to the board for
Karen,
your
welcome.
consideration.
If you'd speak and tell us about yourself and say hello.
Thank you for inviting me this evening. I would love to share a little bit about my background and my desire to be part of the HRIC. Our family has called Danvers home for the last 5 years, and my husband Stephen now works at the Montserrat College of Art, and I serve, as Mr. Barth mentioned, as the Director of Communications with the Massachusetts Communities Action Network. We have 7 affiliates around the Commonwealth focusing on racial equity and economic justice, and our local affiliate is ECHO, the Essex County Community Organization. Stephen and I have 2 daughters. Sarah will soon be 24 and lives in New York City and loves coming home to Danvers. And 20-year-old Kate will be a junior at the University of Vermont in the fall. We love our nearly 300-year-old home on Hobart Street, treasuring its history and believing in the stories yet to be written here. We often say our house found us. When our family moved here from the Washington, D.C. area for my husband to take a job initially in Manchester by the Sea, I knew that my family roots in the state ran deep, and about 18 months ago, I discovered just how local my history is. It turns out that my 7th great-grandfather, Nathaniel Clark, had been born in Salem in December 1644. I was quick to check in with our neighbor and your former colleague, Bill Clark, to see if we were related. And it turns out Bill and I are related, but not through our Clarks, but rather through John Elliott, whose name may be known to some of you. There are other ancestral connections to this area too, including that Nathaniel's widow Elizabeth, my 7th great-grandmother, went on to marry Reverend John Hale of Beverly in 1698. So it turns out that moving here 5 years ago was truly a homecoming for me. I don't share this as a form of credentialing, but as a means of sharing my vision for a Danvers that looks to its future as much as it is aware of its past. It would be an honor to serve our town as a member of the HRIC, which has led with courage and caring in particularly challenging times over the last 3 years. I am excited to work with fellow HRIC members to address both current questions and concerns, but also long-standing possibilities to peel back the layers of Oniontown in order to deepen connections and understanding, to truly walk with one another, whether your family goes back generations or you have recently come to call Danvers home. My vision for Danvers is of a town in which everybody's history and story is valued, that our community thrives equitably in such a way that we write a new story, in fact, a new history, through our economy, education, public services, and ultimately through and with each other. That is a story of Danvers that can impact not only the North Shore, but the Commonwealth as a whole. Again, thank you for this time and this invitation.
Thank you very much, Karen. It's great to have you here tonight. There may be questions or comments from board members. Maureen, have you?
No, thank you, Karen, for volunteering. And you said you lived here for about 5 years?
Yes,
Oh, that's good.
this month.
Well, have you met with other members of the committee at all?
Yes, I
Okay.
have.
All right. That's good. That's really about it.
Thank you, Maureen.
Thank you.
Matt, do you have any questions or comments?
Just to thank you for volunteering your time to help make Danvers a better place to live and work. Wish you the best.
Thank you.
Thank you, Matt. Gardner, do you have questions or comments?
No, your description of your talents and your history and what you have before us in the talent pool speak well to how well I think the committee will benefit from your participation. Good luck.
Thank you.
Thank you, Gardner. Dan, have questions or comments?
No, just thank you for your well-presented presentation, and your history is very interesting. I won't tell you my history tonight. I don't want to bore everybody.
Another time.
Dan. Does this require a vote?
It's our appointment.
It's our appointment.
So we need to vote.
Yeah. Is there any further discussion among members of the board?
Motion that we appoint Karen to the position on the Human Rights and Inclusion Committee.
Second?
In a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Welcome, Karen, and thank you for your volunteering service. And I must say that you're working with some very fine people. Okay?
Mr. Chairman, a second vote would be required to reappoint Jorge Salazar to
Oh,
the committee
excuse
as
me.
well.
Mr. Chairman, I so move.
Mr. Trask moves.
Second.
Mr. Bennett seconds. Any discussion among members of the board? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? That is a vote. Thank you. And Madam Clerk,
Thank you.
will you proceed to the next agenda item?
The board will speak with 2 candidates for a vacancy on the Beverly Airport Commission.
Thank you. Steve, are you actually the one to identify? And do we have the people with us tonight who are, okay? In no particular order, you're closest to the podium. Are you Mr. Casawan? I am. Was your grandfather a dentist in Danvers?
That was my uncle, rather. My father was a dentist himself.
Okay, well, I've got several of his fillings in my mouth still. Mr. Casawan, would you please identify yourself and give us the reasons why you're interested in serving on the, and keep it down, if you would, to 5 minutes?
Oh, certainly.
Thank you.
Thank you. Well, I'm Bill Casawan, and I'll tell you a little bit about me. I live at 7 Fairview Street. I also own 135 Sylvan Street, where my children live. 5 generations of my family have continuously lived in Danvers for just over 100 years. My career spans more than 30 years spent in the aerospace industry and with the Federal Aviation Administration and the Department of Defense. I hold a BS degree in engineering, and the FAA views my combined aviation training as the equivalent of a BS degree in aviation science. I have a long-term working relationship with numerous FAA, Massachusetts Aeronautic Commission, and the Aircraft Owners and Pilots Association personnel. By the way, the AOPA is the largest lobby group in the United States. When the AOPA speaks, the FAA and Congress listen. I am a member of the FAA safety team, and that was 1990 to 99. I have been an AOPA support network volunteer for the Beverly Regional Airport since 1998, and the ASN is a sub-organization of the AOPA dedicated to promoting and protecting community airports. I am an envoy for the North Shore Aero Club, largest pilot association based at Beverly Airport, to the Beverly Airport Commission, and have been since the year 2000. I've been an accident investigator on several occasions, having worked with the FAA, the National Transportation Safety Board, and Massachusetts State Police over the last 20 years or so. In September of 2013, I was recognized by the FAA and honored with the title of Distinguished Aviator for my contribution to aviation safety. Why do I wish to be considered for the position of being a representative to the Beverly Airport Commission? Well, 3 reasons, really. To begin, I firmly believe that if you're not part of the solution, then you're a part of the problem. I salute anyone who gets involved, but along with that requires proper understanding of the situation and observing boundaries. First, at a somewhat recent meeting of the Airport Commission, the commissioner, Mr. Treffery, called for volunteers as they were having difficulty meeting quorum for critical votes. Up until recent, I was unaware of other applicants. Secondly, I feel that I owe civic duty to the town of Danvers, and I feel I'd be adding the value of my expertise to the situation. Thirdly, and perhaps most important, in the late fall of 2022, I was contacted by the AOPA regarding a harassment complaint brought about by the actions of one member of the BAC, Beverly Airport Commission, that had been filed with them and CC'd to the FAA. The AOP asked if I knew this person, the person's a business owner at Beverly Airport, and did I know anything about the situation? My answer to those questions was yes. Later, the person who filed the complaint sought me out and asked for my involvement. That's when I decided to step forward. In terms of if appointed to the commission, what would I do? Well, first of all, I would install JBD, which are jet blast deflectors, the curved surface, at the takeoff ends of runways and run-up airs where needed. A JBD is a curved surface which directs jet blast and prop wash up and away. I would have sound baffling weaved into the chain link and fence surrounding the airport. provide soundproofing to abutting neighbors who are having a problem, and require all real estate agents to notify prospective property buyers of the existence of the airport and ongoing noise complaints. I feel strongly about instituting landing fees for all aircraft not based at Beverly Airport. Hanscom, Lawrence, and Nantucket charge $30 per landing of an aircraft not based at their respective field. That would be for each touch and go, and that seems to be a big issue with noise complaints. This could conceivably thin down touch and go training traffic from off-base flight schools or individuals. I would completely redesign the airport's website back to a source of useful information, such as listing 24/7 points of contact. On the previous website, I was listed and handled after-hour and weekend calls. I would seek to add municipal fees in addition to federal and state tax at the price of jet fuel. Right now, Beverly has the most inexpensive jet fuel in eastern Massachusetts, which in part attracts jet traffic. Besides being able to save thousands of dollars on the fill-up, a lot of patients enjoy the anonymity, convenience, seclusion, and relaxed security, i.e. no TSA, afforded by the Danvers side of the field. I support adopting a simple, common-sense, two-page airport noise abatement plan like that of Nantucket. And finally, I would reinstitute a wildlife control officer for the airport. This person coordinates with the Massachusetts Division of Fisheries and Wildlife to deal with nuisance wildlife which present a collision hazard to operating aircraft.
Thank you not only for being willing to be here, but to be so prepared to explain potential solutions over there. I'm very grateful for that. Thank you. If you'd stay there, Mr. Coswan, there may be questions from members of the board. Matt, do you have?
No, just another, it sounds like another qualified applicant that has tenable solutions to the problems that neighbors have expressed multiple times to this board. And in social media, it's an ongoing issue where many residents feel that the airport turns a deaf ear to what the residents express in terms of frustrated comments. So thank you for your willingness to be on the commission and represent the town.
Thank you for your comments.
Thank you, Matt. Guard, do you have questions or comments?
No, I've known Bill for years, going back to the days when I was the airport commissioner, and I always found him to be thoughtful and thorough, and not open to all sides of discussions. So it's going to be a very tough decision between 5 candidates that are well qualified. But thank you.
Thank you, Guard.
Thank you.
Dan, do you have
Yes,
questions?
thank you. Excuse me, sir.
Mr. Coswan, could you remain up there? We get,
Gardner's not the be-all, end-all.
Well,
Now, he has some great ideas. If appointed to the commission, you'll be one member. What do you think the likelihood is of being able to implement your ideas, especially the $30 fee for all landings?
Well, first of all, yes, I'm one person. I am not argumentative. I try to be persuasive. What I'm talking about is pretty much common sense. And the $30 landing fee is, as I said, that's at Hanscom, at Lawrence, at Nantucket that I know of. All right. I could go into further detail, but shall we say it's not unheard of. I know that there's some sort of landing fee structure at the Beverly Airport. I really don't know the mechanism or where the funding goes. But if there were a revenue stream to be generated, this could only be put right back into nothing more than making a demonstration of appeasement to people who are offended by the situation.
So the problem is, one, with the touch and goes, the number of them, it's alleged that the planes don't reach the proper height when they circle around Danvers. The noise factor, putting up sound barriers at the airport, how will that eliminate the noise in the air?
Well, all right, I have some other points I'll bring out since you mentioned it. All right, I had answers to questions that have been put to me by a number of people. One or two of them come right from this group here. Let's talk about airport noise in general. Somebody had asked, do airplanes have mufflers? Well, piston-driven aircraft and most turboprop do have mufflers. Jets do not. let's see here. Regarding air noise, a study was conducted several years back in the neighborhoods under the flight paths in Danvers, and the decibelic output of piston aircraft is on a par with delivery trucks and lawnmowers. So it's not really horrible, it's just constant.
Right, continuous.
What I've noticed, I was out doing touch and goes a couple weeks ago. It was a Friday afternoon, and for a Friday afternoon, I thought I was going to be out there all alone. There was a lot of traffic, and all this traffic that was coming in was touching and goes and then disappearing, and I'm going like, where are these people going? And that's when it dawned on me. They're probably coming from Lawrence or Hanscom or wherever, and they come to Beverly where they can get away without landing fees. It's possible. I'm not saying it's a hard observation, but it's very possible that other flight schools are coming here and adding to the noise.
Thank you. That's all.
Anything else, Steve?
No.
Thank you. Maureen, had you?
I think it was a great presentation. I learned a lot. I didn't know all of that. The JBD, the sound, remember, the biggest concern we have is for the neighbors. You know, that's with the sound, the touch and goes, the fuel. You know, I've seen the planes very low, too. You know, dangerous in Burley Street, you know, making sure that they don't crash into our neighborhoods down the Woodville areas. I didn't know about the lower gas prices there that attract the planes, so that was, you know.
Certainly, I wouldn't
Yeah.
expect anyone here would
Right,
be
no,
familiar
it's-
with a website called AirNav. You can go in there, punch up whatever airport you want, and it takes 5 minutes tops, and you can compare all the fuel prices right up and down the eastern part of the state. And we're either the lowest or one of two of the lowest. And jet aircraft consume a lot of fuel. When they come in for fuel, it's not like a single engine. A single engine, I might drop $50 to $100. They're dropping thousands of dollars. It's cheap. And a couple more things I'll mention. First of all, I don't think I touched upon the fact that I have been a representative to the Beverly Airport Commission with my flying club, Washer Air Club, and have been for 20 years, 22 years. So I've been there. This is where Gardner and I have met. He remembers the old days, what things are like, a very good organization we had back then. And the only comment here that you may find this interesting, the United States transitioned over to next-gen air traffic control back in 2020. It's more commonly known as ADS-B, which is Automatic Dependent Surveillance Broadcast. It's a satellite-based navigational system, which means that all aircraft movements and altitudes are under precise surveillance. Anybody who is familiar with a software called ForeFlight, they can call it up and you can see your flight in detail, where you were, what altitude you were at, so on and so forth. So that if anyone broke minimums, in other words, they're descending into the airport at too low an altitude, it's on record. And if somebody did that, 2 minutes after they landed, the phone number they'd have listed on their flight plan would get a call saying, let's discuss why you broke minimums. So they are under surveillance. How often it's reinforced, I don't know, but that is a fact.
Very good to know. I think Gardner brought that to our attention at one point, too. So a lot of it, thank you for educating us.
My pleasure.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Maureen.
All set?
Thank you, Doctor. And again, your presentation was extremely interesting. Dr. Mioli. And would you, sir, please identify yourself and speak right into the microphone and let us know about your interest in being a commissioner on behalf of Danvers to the Airport Commission.
My name is Vincent Mioli. I have been a Danvers resident for the last 6 years, which doesn't sound like a lot of time listening to people here, but I've been part of the airport for the majority of my life. It really was kind of where my love for aviation came to flourish. It's where I took my first airplane ride. It's where, in December of 2002, I flew my first solo with my poor father sitting on the ramp, standing by nervously, watching me do 3 touch and goes in the pattern. And it's where I went on to kind of develop my love of aviation and my ratings, and I've been lucky enough to be an owner of various aircraft, and right now my Baron is tied down over at Hangar 4. When I saw this position come up, I was excited to be able to give back if possible. In my professional life, I'm a physician. I graduated BU Med School a long time ago. I did my internship at Boston City, my residency in emergency medicine in the Bronx, and I've been in practice with a group out of Beverly Hospital since 2007. Over the last 7 or 8 years, I've worked with a partner, and we've developed a string of urgent care franchises in the state, and after about 9 of them, we decided to kind of wrap it up and call it a day. And then more recently, my next venture was to develop a mental health practice to help the crisis that's kind of ongoing now. I had kind of a different talk in mind after listening to the gentleman, with all due respect. It kind of bothers me that someone or people who are part of the airport commission are not pro-aviation. I grew up around airplanes. I love the sound of an airplane. My home is on the approach path to 16. I sit out in the summer with a glass of wine and I watch the kids come around, do touch and goes just like I did. Those pilots that fly JetBlue, that fly you to Europe, that fly you to Florida, they start at places like Beverly. And I think punishing them with fees and taxes and restrictions is exactly the wrong thing that we need. I think we need more traffic. I think we need more people wanting to come to the airport. I love our business partners. I love our traffic controllers. I love our flight schools. The traffic brings in revenue, and it brings interest in aviation. You know, I don't have a lot of answers. I know people that aren't in the world of aviation complain about the noise, but as stated earlier, you live near an airport. You live in a town, there's traffic, there's noise. I don't maybe can count on one hand the amount of times late at night a jet has come in or disturbed my sleep. It almost never happens in the middle of the night. I can tell you, I've flown in late at night and have taken paths to be careful not to disturb neighbors. I think really the question is which way the airport and the commission wants to go. Do we want to be exclusive and try to cut down traffic, or do we want to grow the airport and bring in more revenue? I would like to kind of sit on the ramp one day and watch my 13-year-old get on the airplane and do her 3 touch and goes from Beverly. So that's my wish.
Thank you very much, Doctor. Dan, do you have questions or comments?
Just a question I asked the previous 3 applicants. What's the likelihood of you staying on the commission for some extended time? We've had such a turnover the last couple of years. It's really not done us good.
Having been around the airport for a long time, I know a lot of the players. I know the good, I know the bad, I know where the bodies are buried. It's, I think a little bit of turnover was probably a good thing. I think you need new blood in there. But listen, my daughter's 13. She goes to St. Mary's. I've been at Beverly for 20 years. I'm not going anywhere. I don't plan on moving, at least not yet.
No, you're right.
But-
New blood is always good, but we're looking for somebody that can give some stability to the position for the community.
Absolutely.
Not for Beverly, not for Wenham, but for Danvers.
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you. That's all, David.
Thank you, Dan. Maureen, questions or comments?
Thank you for coming before us. How are you going to help the neighbors with the noise?
Well, I think,
And you said you love the traffic. I understand, pilots like that, but, we want to have some sympathy towards the neighbors.
Absolutely. I
The
agree.
noise and the touch and goes and safety issues.
I think it's hard to balance the need of students to learn how to land. And it's part of the process. I think right now we have hours of operations that are cut down, so we're not flying and doing touch and goes first thing in the morning or later at night. I think reasonable accommodations can be made. Could there be changes in the flight path, the patterns? have to take a look at it. I think there's different ways to skin a cat without completely handicapping the entire industry.
Okay, that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Maureen. Dan, Matt, I'm sorry.
Sure. I'll start with your pro-airport stance, and I think that most of the applicants are pilots, so that's understandable. I did receive some calls from residents who were concerned about that, but I think it's important that you're fully engaged and you understand how the airport works. You had mentioned increasing flights and increasing revenue, but Danvers doesn't receive any of that revenue. We don't receive the tax on the fuel. We don't receive any funds at all. And I'll give you an example. When there
Well,
are...
you don't receive direct funds from the flights. You receive the funds from the people flying in. Why are they coming to Beverly?
I don't believe the town receives any revenue from the airport.
Not from the airport, sir, from the people coming.
Oh,
The people that come to the airport, that fly, that have the money to fly in, they're spending the money locally. They're spending the money
Okay.
in local
I'll
businesses,
give
they're
you
going to
that. That's-
beaches, they're going to downtown. It's not just at the airport.
Yeah, I understand. And also, there's the pilots that fly out. I have a neighbor that has a business. He flies customers around New England. So I understand how it supports the local economy. And I'll give you that component could be increased. I know on occasions when there are emergencies there where pilots may not be able to extend their landing gear, Danvers sends a full complement of first responders, police, fire, EMS, and I've seen it happen. It's a significant turnout, and there's a cost to the taxpayers for that type of response. And we're not, and the
Are we gonna,
taxpayers.
I'm just curious, are we gonna nickel and dime responses to other emergencies in the city?
I'm just saying how the town supports the airport.
I understand.
That's an example.
I understand, but the fact is, we have emergency services. You want to limit the emergency services to the airport when there's an occasional accident or incident?
I think the point I'm trying to make is there's some give and take, right? And so it seems like the airport takes, right? So I'm just concerned that if you're promoting the airport and you're looking at it as a kind of a business and not really understanding what the residents, how it impacts their quality of life.
I am a resident, sir. Like I said, I live right under the flight path.
Well, we have residents show up here on a regular basis,
understand.
and they are quite upset.
And so the question is, are you going to shut down all noise in the town? Are you going to shut down the delivery trucks? FedEx, Amazon, you're going to stop them from
Well,
coming
I
through the
think there
town?
needs to be some type of constraints. I lived in Orient Heights in the 70s next to Logan, and I know that they were forced to implement certain hours of operation in terms of departures and arrivals, something along those lines. There needs to be some constraints. I'll just leave it at that.
Thank you.
Appreciate your fact that you're volunteering, you're willing to volunteer your time.
I appreciate
Thank
the
you,
time.
sir.
Thank you, Matt. Thank you, Dr. Mioli. Thanks.
oh,
Oh,
I didn't get it.
God, I'm sorry.
That's all right. Hi, how are you? I'm usually tagged as the person most pro-airport on the board, and having represented the town as a airport commissioner for 4.5 years. And I guess I'm concerned that about some of your statements, to be frank. To say you live near an airport, there's going to be noise. You're right. There is going to be noise. There is that level of understanding. You live near a railroad, it's going to be noise. But I think that I'm not hearing the same balance has been offered by the other 4 candidates, which is a acknowledgement that the citizens do get a lot of noise, and there's sometimes reasons for it, and they're being looked at. The noise. I was one of the original authors of the noise abatement program 20 years ago, neighborhood friendly noise abatement. And I also agree there's a great economic benefit to having the airport. Cherry Hill wouldn't be filled with multi-billion-dollar corporations if that airport wasn't there. I work for one of them and know for a fact that every European visitor to Medtronic, a $34 billion company, comes to the Danvers facility. Abiomed, all of the ones there are based there because of the proximity to the airport to fly their executives in. So I see the economic advantage. But I think I'm looking for balance, which is to say, the other four applicants all said, yes, I recognize the citizens have concerns, complaints, grievances that need to be at least discussed and addressed.
And I don't disagree.
But I'm hearing that.
What
so
I
when you
disagree
sit,
with,
what-
what I disagree with,
One
sorry.
second. When you say you sit on your lawn and you listen, if I'm a race car aficionado or I'm a motorcyclist, which I am, I don't hear all the passing motorcycles the same way Mr. Mills hears them, who isn't.
Agreed.
So as an aficionado of air traffic and airplanes, and to you, it's music.
Understood.
And same thing to me. When I hear a motorcycle go by, to me, it's music. To others, it's noise. And so I'm looking for a balance. And I'm not going to weigh the. I understand Mr. Duggan's point that we do offer services for which we don't get any taxation income. It's a unnamed pilot. And I'm not looking to make it a revenue stream for Danvers. I know for a fact, having served, every penny that gets paid to the airport goes back into only the airport. It doesn't go to the city of Beverly. It goes to keep the airport sustainable and safe. So, but I also hear suggestions like, if we were to institute some sort of fee, we would limit the outside touch and goes. It wouldn't, I'm certain that we'd work it out with the local traffic, the schools. But we also know that there's a lot of outside schools that come to us because it's in a class area space. So I'm just looking for a little more balance.
What it doesn't limit are the aircraft coming in that aren't doing touch and goes. It doesn't limit the aircraft on instrument approach that are training instrument students and go and missed and come around and do it again and again.
True enough.
There's nothing to collect fees there, right? Nobody charges fees for instrument
But
approaches.
I'm not suggesting that we're going to solve everything with landing fees. I'm saying if we cut some amount, 5%, 10% of repetitive touch and goes from outside our area, that's an effect. And I would want to see that effect. And the other thing is the consultants of the FAA who man the towers, we should be using the data that you talked about to look at the flight paths that they come off the runways. We've heard complaints from neighbors that, and I realize it's anecdotal, that a great percentage of the takeoff and landings is 1634, and 16. Yeah. But if we could use that data to represent and understand that, and ask the consulting firm to the FAA who controls the direction which you take off, the runway you use, we could try to find either a reasonable explanation that we could provide for the residents, or the understanding that maybe there's alternate patterns. I'm just suggesting that the comments you've offered are don't seem to take into account the neighbors' concerns, whether we can fix them or not.
I think
Can I suggest possibility that the board take the 5 applications and take till the next meeting to review them all, because frankly, I don't remember.
No, I think that's appropriate. If the gentleman could answer my question, Mr.
Okay,
Chairman.
briefly, because this
Yeah.
is a very
Yep.
prolonged and I think not necessarily appropriate discussion, but yes, can you answer his question?
I'd like to see what the data is where you're charging more and getting less complaints. Are they still not complaining over Hanscom or Lawrence? Did the complaints go down? I doubt it. Where's the data?
Okay.
Because it's still going to happen.
Mr. Chairman, I'm through with my questions. I've gotten the answers I needed, and I agree with you. I think we had 3 applicants previously, 2 applicants tonight. I think it would be unfair to either body of those applicants to decide tonight. I would ask that we table the decision until the next meeting.
I think it's a great idea. Matt, how do you feel about that?
Yes, I think that's a good idea.
Maureen?
Yes, great idea, David.
Me too. Now,
Okay.
do I have to?
If I may, I think we're going to be in the same dilemma next week. We have 5 talented gentlemen that are applying for the position. And I think we'll have problem finding consensus next week. My thought in my mind is maybe tonight narrow it down to 3 for consideration. Just my thought.
No, there's a thought. God, how are you?
Well, my expectation.
See, I don't
yeah,
remember.
no.
See, I
No,
don't
I get it.
remember the
I
other.
have I have all of them, and I took notes, copious notes when we did it
Yep.
before, so I'll have to refer back to my notes. But I think it may give an inappropriate impression that if it's, that you had to be here to be, to get the vote, or not be here, whatever it was. My thought is, the next meeting is a public meeting, anybody can come, but it's not to have the applicants come back. It's to view the notes we took and the comments we heard, and then go through them. And I think that if coming to consensus on 3 to a consensus on 5 is going to be the same at the next meeting, it's going to be work. But I think that, we owe the same level of distance between tonight's applicants and the ones that came before us ahead of time.
I think that.
That's my thought, but Dan had a suggestion.
I think your suggestion, God, I support, but it's the pleasure of the board. What is the pleasure of the board? I'm for tabling so that I can review, once again, the papers on the first 3 applicants as well as these, because otherwise I don't think I can make a fair decision. Matt, how do you feel, please?
Yeah, I feel the same way. I had, over the past week, had reviewed the video from the past meeting and listened to their presentations again, and then took some notes. So I'd like to have the same opportunity for the 2, to do the same for the 2 applicants this evening. So I'm willing to table as well.
Thank you, Matt. Maureen, your thoughts?
I did review it too, and thank you for
Could you
coming tonight, both of
speak up?
you.
Yeah.
I did review the papers, I went over them again.
Yeah.
And I thank you to the 2 that came. I'd like to make a motion that we do table it for next meeting.
Thank you. Do we, Dan, how are you with that?
That's fine. The majority, it seems the consensus of the table, that's fine.
Do we need a vote on that?
No,
No.
motion to table in a second is fine.
Okay, so it will be tabled, and it will give me an opportunity to review all 5 application papers, and we will consider them publicly in public hearing at our next regular meeting. Is that okay?
And we'll debate amongst ourselves. We will not be asking questions of the applicants.
Correct.
Thank you.
Okay,
And Mr. Chairman, thank you. I think that's appropriate if you want to take that, but then I have a point afterwards.
sure, yeah.
So, did you think it should be a motion and seconded?
Motion to
It
table.
was. It's a
Okay,
motion to table.
Okay,
It's a consensus.
okay.
It's tabled.
All right. I just want to let the other board members know, in case they didn't, because this is new for some of us. The action that we make next week will be to send a recommendation to the city of Beverly. The city of Beverly makes the final decision. It's not that we decide and that person's automatically on the board. This is the same process I went through in the past 2, the previous 2 went through. Our names are submitted to Beverly. The mayor and the committees also discuss our recommendation and then decide to accept it. They've never not accepted it, but I just want you to know it's not get voted, you're automatically on the airport commission. Just for technical details, history you may not have had.
I didn't know that, and thank you.
Yep.
Okay, so we will thank you, Doctor, and
Thank you.
thank
Thank you,
you,
guys.
Mr.
Appreciate
Kosawan, not a doctor. Okay, but your grandfather was. Okay. Thanks for being with us tonight. And Madam Clerk, can we proceed to the next?
The board will meet recent town manager appointees to various boards and committees, including the Recreation Committee and Conservation Commission.
Mr. Manager, would you introduce the,
I will. I should say thank you, Madam Clerk and Mr. Chairman, since you read it and you deferred. We have 3 candidates in the room tonight, I should say appointees in the room tonight, and just a sort of a general update. We had put out a flyer for the month of March, letting residents know of opportunities to serve. We do still have some vacancies that we're trying to fill. After a month on the street, we had exactly 0 applicants to serve on the ZBA. So we're lucky we have a full contingent now. That's a complicated board to serve on. One of the applicants who filled out a form with interest in a separate committee, I learned had formerly served on a ZBA in a different community. So I immediately reached out to this person to see if they might consider serving on our ZBA. Unfortunately, his spouse has night meetings the same night that our ZBA meets, which is why he didn't include that as a potential fit. So we'll be meeting an appointee on the 20th to the planning board who couldn't be here tonight, but tonight we have 2 appointments on the Conservation Commission and 1 on the Recreation Commission. So I'll first invite Alyssa Zarnecki to introduce herself. She'll be joining the Recreation Commission. Had a chance to interview her. She has worked with Dave Mountain, and her background, which I'm sure she'll share with us, she has, I believe, a doctorate in sports management and is a professor of sports management at Endicott College, so highly qualified, very enthusiastic about the opportunity, and I'll turn it over to Ms. Zarnecki.
Thank you. Good evening. Hello. So I was thrilled to have gotten the good word that I was appointed to the Recreation Committee. As town manager said, I've much of what I teach in the discipline that I teach within sport management, athletic administration, sport leadership, we focus a lot on not only governance and policy, but sport and community, sport for development. And I also moonlight as a fitness and strength and conditioning and health and wellness coach in many different modalities. So I definitely am excited about kind of how this piece of service can parallel not only what I do in my professional career, but also as a longtime Danvers resident, having gone through, grown up, participated in many programs offered by the rec department, and now with a young family doing the same. So looking forward to doing that work.
Thank you for your willingness to serve. I don't believe this requires a vote or a...
It's already been appointed.
Sure. And Guy, did you have any comments?
No, other than thank you for using your
Sure.
skills to help the town.
And Dan, you?
No, welcome.
And
Thank you.
Maureen?
Welcome, Alyssa.
Thank you.
I like how, you've worked with, educated, and impacted the lives of many from youth to senior population. That's great. Welcome, and thank you for volunteering.
Sure.
Thank you, Maureen. Matt?
Yep, same here. It sounds like you're a good fit, so I wish you success in the
Thank
role.
you.
Thanks for taking the time for being with
course.
us tonight.
Thank you.
Steve, did you have?
2 more.
Yeah.
The next candidate, Jonathan, and I'm going to try to pronounce Garis? Garis, okay, I got that. I'm going to read a little bit from his talent form because you couldn't design a better background to serve on the Concom. He's an expert in invasive plants. He's a manager in an ecological construction company and is an expert on sediment control and BMP, which I'm not familiar with. But
Best management practices.
there you go. And resident and saw the opportunity, reached out, has, I believe, been engaged with Georgia Pendergast, who's works in support of the Conservation Commission. And so we're in work with Stephen King, town engineer. So, John, if you want to introduce yourself.
Yeah, thanks for the intro. Kind of took a lot of what I was going to say,
My
but
apologies.
no, I'm kidding. I may kind of lean a little awkward up here. I kind of tweaked my back today, but if I look uncomfortable, don't worry about it. But my name is Jonathan Gars, as Steve mentioned. I've lived in Danvers now for a number of years on and off since I was in my 20s. Most recently purchased a house on Elliott Street. I've lived there for 3 years. I lived there with my wife, Lisa, our beloved Australian Shepherd, Randy. We love the town of Danvers, and I bring 20 years of construction and environmental experience to the commission. So I think that's a good interface for the commission. I've worked with a number of commissions in the state of Massachusetts, and looking forward to working with this town's commission, the other departments in the town, and with the residents of Danvers.
Thank you, Jonathan. Matt, had you any questions or comments?
Sounds like another well-qualified candidate, or someone, actually, I think you've already been appointed. Is that the case? Just a question, you're familiar with Massachusetts wetlands laws?
Yes, I am.
And have you taken an opportunity to look at our town wetlands bylaws?
I look forward to studying them
Yeah, we'll
and
send
being
them
an
to
expert
you,
in
and
them.
you can
Yeah.
read them at night. It'll put you to sleep.
Absolutely.
I wish you success in the role.
Thank you very much.
We look forward to seeing you at the meetings.
Thank you,
Good.
thank you, Matt. Maureen, have you?
Thank you, Jonathan. Plan expert and love Danvers. That's what we want, so thank you.
Dan?
Welcome.
Great.
Welcome.
Thank
I
you.
do have something to say.
Sure.
Because I'm the oldest one in the room. And I was around when the Wetlands Protection Act was adopted. I think it was 1972. I was a young lawyer then trying to make a living. And I thought it was a terrible nuisance. And I resented every part of it. And I, of course, came to understand. I used to look out, like up at Freddie's Lobster Land up in Gloucester. I used to look and see that as a swamp. Now, I see it as a beautiful, beautiful thing. It took some education for many people to understand the significance of wetland protection. And I think that you are the bargain of the bargains to be on our Conservation Commission, and I couldn't be happier. So welcome.
I appreciate that.
Thank
Thank you
you.
very much.
There's nothing else unless you wanted to say, Steve?
I'll introduce our third,
Thank you.
I keep saying candidate. appointee.
Thank you, Jonathan, for being here.
So the third appointee tonight is Mary Haight. And Mary, I'll say three things. First, she's a biology teacher at the high school. She has a master's degree in sustainability and environmental management, and most importantly, is a graduate of the Danvers Citizens Academy. And so we're very happy as well to have Mary join the Concom as an alternate.
You can just say hello if you like. You don't have to.
Yeah, and I'm just really excited because I've been teaching. I stepped away with COVID, so I've had a break. But going from, being able to do the Conservation Commission, I think education is really important in many ways. But I also think it's important to listen to things and what people say. And I'm excited to be the alternate and to have yourself as someone as a guide for me too. I've always taught about stuff, but applying it is where I'm excited. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary. You left before you got all kinds of thanks and applause from the other board members, but
We can give the applause.
okay. Thank you, Mary, for willingness to serve. Madam Clerk?
The board will consider two proclamations recognizing Race Amity Day and Juneteenth in the town of Danvers.
Where are we on this, Steve?
This is agenda item number 6. These were late additions to the agenda. I would invite Chairman Joko up to the microphone. One of the proclamations is one that was adopted last year by the board, and I believe the second, which is the Race Amity Day proclamation, is new. And Dee is here representing the Human Rights and Inclusion Committee and making the request tonight.
Welcome, T.
Thank you very much. So the first one is the Race Amity Day, and I'm sure there are people who may never have heard of it. At the end of 2015, the Massachusetts legislature passed the Race Amity Day Bill number H 2745, Chapter 163 of Act of 2015. The first in the nation legislation was signed into law and celebrated in the State House ceremony with Governor Charles Baker. And that was in February 2016. The bill was the outgrowth of work at the National Center for Race Amity at Wilcox College in Boston. In these times when racist violence is ramping, it is important than ever to reflect on the power of race amity and how cross-racial friendship can produce comfort, hope, and racial equity. Celebration does not mean we turn away from the painful truth and egregious violence. Friendship involves being present for and attending to the other. As French philosopher Simone Weil insisted, we should avoid all sentimentalism in friendship and instead think of friendship as a virtue, something to be exercised. So as we gather in the town of Danvers on June 11, hopefully we can read the proclamation before you today. Let us hold ourselves, and this will help us hold ourselves open to the joy and strength that friendship brings, and then be prepared to channel that joy and strength into action for change. You do have a copy of the proclamation. I don't know if the chairman would like me to read it or.
Well, Dee, I would ask Member Bernard, this is going to be a proclamation of the board. So I think that it would be helpful if a member, Maureen, would you read the,
I don't want to read it, David. Could clerk read it for me? I
I-
said
I-
I'd,
it's a s-
yeah,
It's a select board vote,
okay.
so a select board person has to
Okay, some
read
of
it.
these words I don't even know. No, I'm like,
okay, so Maureen
Yeah.
does not want to read it.
no, I agree with it, but I'll have can the clerk read it?
No.
No, if you don't want to read it, that's okay.
Okay, that's all right. I'll read the next one.
All right.
No, it doesn't matter, no.
Guy,
No, it is my glasses.
Would you
clog up.
read that?
Sure. Race Amity Day in the town of Danvers, June 11th, 2023. Whereas the town of Danvers is comprised of multicultural, ethnic, and multiracial citizens from all over the world, and whereas friendship, collegiality, civility, respect, and kindness are commonly shared ideas of the community, and whereas the town of Danvers strives to continue to be a better and more welcoming place, and whereas the town of Danvers supports the Great Seal of the United States of America, which bears the inscription E pluribus unum, which translates from the Latin as out of many, one. And whereas E pluribus unum initiative has invited communities across the United States of America to join in introspective and reflection on the beauty and richness of the diverse people of the great nation while reaching out with a spirit of amity towards one another annually on the second Sunday in June, and whereas H. 2745, Chapter 163 of the Acts of 2015, and of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts establishes the second Sunday in June annually as Race Amity Day, and whereas Charles V. Baker, then Governor of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, proclaimed June 10th, 2018 as Race Amity Day, now therefore let it be proclaimed in the town of Danvers that the second Sunday in June in the year 2023 and every year henceforth be Race Amity Day, and urge all the citizens of the community to take cognizance of this event and participate fittingly in its observance.
Guard, is that your motion?
That is my motion.
There is the motion. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Thank you. Then it is approved and it is the action of the board. Dee, did you write this, by the way?
With some help from the one that was written by
Well,
Governor
as
Charlie
usual,
Baker
everything that you write
and committee members.
well, everything that you write and speak for the committee is a joy. Now, did you want to speak?
I'm
need
sorry,
a
Mr.
vote.
Chairman, we need a vote.
Oh, yeah. Well, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All
Aye.
opposed? It is a vote. Dee, did you want to speak to the Juneteenth proclamation?
That one is one that you approved last year, but they had a date for 2022, so we're just asking if it could be reapproved for this year.
Thank you.
Motion to reapprove.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
That is a vote. And thank you very much, Dee, for your hard work.
Thank you very
My
much.
apologies, Dee. I would have read, these aren't the right reading glasses tonight.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, may I point out this flyer for Sunday, June 11th? Library lawn, 1 to 3.
Yes, thank you very much. And we do have the Race Amity Day at the library on Sunday, June 11, 1 to 3. It's going to be some pocket jazz, Afro jazz music, cross-racial friendship interview and conversation, because we want to model that for the town, as well as some Ole flamingos. So please get your dancing shoes. And so we also have some student speakers and some poem.
Very good.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dan.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Dee. Are we on to the next item?
We can be.
Yes, if you would, please.
The board will vote to accept a gift in accordance with MGL Chapter 44, Section 53A.
Now, who knows about this to
I can
explain?
speak to that, Mr. Chairman.
I'm sorry.
Through you, the board received a letter in the packets tonight from Paul and Nancy McNulty, making a $500 donation to the town for the installation of 2 shade trees to be installed at a location determined by the forestry department. They noted that in walking around town, they always lament seeing an old tree taken down that's either decayed or interfering with the utilities, and so they wanted to make a personal contribution to support and enhance the town's line item to do that work, so.
Thank you, Steve. Are there any comments by board members on that request?
Well, just to thank the McNultys for the generous donation, and well, we always get, my wife and I get upset when we see trees being cut down. Sometimes it's needed, but not always. So it's great to keep replenishing the trees.
Thank you, Dan. God, had you any comment?
No.
Maureen, any comment?
I just want to say thank you to Paul and Nancy McNulty. They do a lot. I mean, they're very involved in the rail trail.
They're wonderful people.
And, you know, Paul runs a great meeting, and, you know, the rail trail's been superb.
Thank you,
know.
Maureen.
Thank you.
Matt, had you any comment?
Well, I kind of support their observations, because we do see trees cut down for whatever reason, typically decay, but we don't really see them replaced, which is disconcerting, especially in neighborhoods where the streetscape, as you look down the street, the canopy kind of provides an attractive backdrop for the neighborhoods, and when you have gaps from missing trees, it's you know, I think it was pointed out, you end up just seeing utility lines and utility poles, which are not very attractive. So.
The electric department employees in the room find that very attractive. But this is a good opportunity to say, the forestry division does try to replace at least 1 tree for every tree that comes down. Unfortunately, they're often much smaller and typically different varieties than the ones that have been here for 100 years. But if anybody would like to see a tree planted on a particular street or has an idea, certainly they should reach out through the Public Works Department. And our forestry division is always looking for places. We have funds in the budget to do that work, and certainly we appreciate the support of Paul and Nancy as well.
And is that the cost for 2 trees, is $500?
It depends on the size and variety of the tree.
The species, yeah.
Now, 50 years ago, when I was a kid, we called it the Shade Tree Department. Do you remember that, Bill? Never mind. All right. Do we need a vote on that?
Yes.
Is there a
Motion to
motion,
accept.
Dan?
Motion to accept the gift and send the letter, appropriate letter.
I'll second it.
Now, who writes the letter? Ann or Steve?
Ann.
Okay, we'll have, and they'll be, thank you. Send a letter to the McNultys. They are wonderful people. Is there a next item? Oh, we need a vote. All in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? It is a vote, and thank you. Now, Madam Clerk, if you would move on, please.
A public hearing will be held under Chapter 138 of the General Laws on the application of GMRI Incorporated, doing business as the Olive Garden Italian Restaurant, number 1874 at 153 Andover Street. Candy Jimenez, manager, for a change of manager of an all-alcoholic common victular license at that location.
Is that Candy, are you? Please, would you go to the podium and say hello?
Hello, my name is Candy Jimenez, and I've been an employee for the Olive Garden for 12 years now, right there in 114. I live in Peabody for the last 15 years, and I have 4 kids. I've been everything in that restaurant, from a waitress to a bartender to a service professional to now a manager to just promoted to general manager. So I'm very proud of the work that I've done, and I just hope that I can continue to do it.
Thank you, Candy. There might be a couple of questions if you'd stay there,
Sure.
please. Guard?
Certainly welcome, and congratulations on your promotion.
Thank you.
I asked the same set of questions. I see you're going to be there 40-plus hours. I also see that you're tip certified. Could you explain your experience with liquor service? You said you were a bartender. Just give us a little more detail about your work.
Yeah, so I mean, we go through a lot of training to make sure that everyone is kept safe. You know, making sure that everything is measured to what is legal to serve to everyone, just to make sure that all of our guests are safe when they leave the restaurant, as well as they can have a good time.
Aside from the ABCC, Danvers has its own liquor guidelines. I'm presuming you got a copy of that? Or, fantastic.
Yes.
And are you the only name changing on the liquor license?
So I have 2 new managers
Okay.
who just got tips certified as well, but they just started working there.
But they'll be the
within-
alternates you'll list?
Yes.
We require yourself and at least 1 or 2 other alternates, so that there's
Yes.
always a person whose name is on the license
Yes.
in the restaurant when it's open.
Yes, so I already gave it to the town clerk.
Very good.
Yeah.
I think those are my only questions. Thank you very much, and good luck.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Garth. Dan, have you any questions or comments?
I do, thank you. Congratulations on your new position.
Thank you.
Congratulations on getting tips certified. You just mentioned you have some other managers that just received their certification?
Yeah, they just became managers.
They just, now, what about the wait staff? Do they need to be certified?
So we have our own training, so the Olive Garden doesn't necessarily need it, because we do have the responsible alcohol training that all the servers, bartenders, and anyone that has to do with alcohol has to pass before they can go on the floor.
And I see you just received your tip certification in March of this year. I guess is really a question to the clerk. I thought we required every restaurant to have X amount of people tip certified, no?
Yep, all servers are required to have some kind of liquor service training. There are different kinds of that out there. Not necessarily tips certification, but there are other companies that come into bigger restaurants and do the training.
That's a conversation for the future. I don't know that how we approve their certification, their training program, if it meets our standards.
They provide me with a list of the people who have been trained.
Trained,
Correct.
not necessarily certified.
We can look into that. I don't have their actual documentation for that
Just a
here.
thought, something to look into, if I may, Mr. Chairman, just to, I mean, this young lady's done a lot of good things in her position to get promoted, but this is really the first time she's ever been tip certified. So I find that troublesome for the Olive Garden. Those are my thoughts.
Okay.
But I have no more for the applicant.
Thank you, Dan. Okay. Maureen, have you questions or comments?
No, I just want to say, great job, Candy. Congratulations
Thank
on
you.
all your hard work.
I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Maureen. Matt, have you questions and comments?
Just a comment, we know that the Olive Garden is a well-run business. I don't recall ever hearing about any trouble or any violations, so I'm sure that it will continue to be so under your watchful eye. I just had a question about carding customers' IDs. Do you card every single customer that?
Pretty much, yeah. I think it's a safer way to serve, just to make sure that everyone has an ID that is not expired and that they are of age.
Okay, so I think I just heard you say pretty much. So either you card everybody or you don't. So we
So
found that
we
it's
are not-
more consistent, right? If you just card every single customer that requests an alcoholic beverage.
So everyone that appears to the age of 40 or less should be carded. We don't limit that to just somebody, because a lot of people can look 40 and a lot of them cannot. So unless, you don't look 80 to me, then I will.
Yeah, okay. I'm just saying.
You won't get carded.
We found other,
I would card you. You don't look 80.
I'm just saying like if you went to Fenway Park, they card every single person. That's their policy. And we've had other businesses come before us and they've volunteered to have that policy in effect in their business. Sometimes it's better just to be consistent and not leave it up to the discretion of the server.
Of course.
So, all right, well, I wish you success in the new role. It sounds pretty exciting.
Thank you.
Thank you, Matt. Any further discussion among members of the board? This is a public hearing, correct? Yes. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to comment upon this application?
Motion to close the public hearing?
Is there a second? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? So the public hearing is closed. Is there a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I move we accept the application as presented.
Thank you, Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Dan. And is there further discussion on the motion? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
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 All opposed? Thank you, Candy,
Thank you so much.
and thanks for waiting around tonight.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
Madam Clerk?
The board will consider an application for a one-day wine and malt beverage license by North Shore Agricultural and Technical School, 565 Maple Street, Bonnie Carr, event coordinator, to hold Leeds graduation and pitch day on Friday, June 9th, 2023, from 5:30 PM to 8 PM at Smith Hall and on the Smith Lawn.
Is someone here to speak to that?
Hi, everyone. My name is Bonnie Carr, and
Welcome again, Bonnie.
thank you. I am the Director of Workforce Development at Essex Tech, and many times that involves events as well. So tonight we wanted to request another liquor license for one day for the Leeds graduation ceremony and pitch ceremony that's going to be taking place on our campus on Friday. So just a little bit of history about the Leeds group. The Leeds group is made up of cross-sectional recommended leaders that try to create and come up with programs and projects that will be beneficial to many different communities. And this in particular is on the North Shore, Merrimack Valley, and the Cape Ann area. Those are some of the areas that they have had successful projects on before. So those projects usually benefit primarily the residents of gateway cities and some economic justice neighborhoods. Some of the programs that they target are things like workforce development, transportation issues, housing, some of the critical issues that we hear about so much within our communities now. There are many fellows that have gone through the LEADS program, elite leaders, and some of the organizations I kind of researched and noted where they've been from, just to kind of give you an idea of the caliber of people that are going through the organization to try to get this very important work done. In the past, there's been people who are fellows from the Creative Collective, the Essex County Community Organization, some of the state representatives, and some school committee members locally. Also, representatives from the Leo Child Care Organization, Salem State College, the Peabody Police. One of the projects that had come out of that were the Cops for Kids. Cops for Kids. And I didn't note this down, but Cops for Kids. And also some people from Congressman Moulton's office. So the premise is for the people to come together with their diverse talents and to create a project that will be beneficial. There will be 3 projects that are going to be pitched tomorrow to the leaders of the LEAD program to see if those can be implemented. And at the end of that, they hope to have a reception to kind of celebrate the end of their tenure as a LEADS participant.
Thank you very much, Bonnie. Guard, questions, comments?
No, I'm presuming that the service of the alcohol will be by tip-certified people, and
It is. In the past, we have usually partnered with the North Shore bartenders, but they're very busy, and they recommended that we check in with Boston's Best Bartending out of Newburyport, and all of the tips information and their liquor liability insurance policy has been presented to the board through the packet.
great. Based on the track history, we've approved many one-day liquor licenses at the school and have not had any issues. I'm not concerned at all. Thank you.
Thank you, Guy. Dan?
No, all set. Good luck.
Maureen?
Hi, Bonnie again. I think that LEADS program, I work at Reading Cooperative Bank, and we have coworkers that are participants in this LEADS program.
In the current program?
Yes, in the current program. So
Oh.
this is their graduation day.
Yeah,
right?
so I look forward to
Yeah,
seeing them
it's-
all tomorrow
It's
on
wonderful.
Friday.
If
Yeah.
anybody knows about it, they should, really look into it. It really is for a lot of great programs, a lot of different talents that have, come together, and they really brainstorm a lot to make the communities a much better place. But
Yeah.
thank you.
They really do.
Thank you, Maureen. Matt, had you comments or questions?
Nope, it just sounds like another great event that you have at the school, and wish you good weather.
Thank you. We do as well. We appreciate it.
Thank you, Bonnie. For Matt, it is a
Thank you.
public hearing. Any comments from the audience?
Mr. Chairman, I move we close the public hearing.
Motion and second.
Second.
All in favor of closing the public hearing?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? That's a vote. And now, is there a motion on the,
Mr. Chair, make a motion that we approve the application for Friday, the 9th, this coming 5:30 to 8 o'clock at Smith Hall.
thank you, Dan, a second?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Thanks again, Bonnie, for coming.
Thank you all.
Madam
It's a good
Clerk.
program.
The board will consider 3 applications for one-day wine and malt beverage licenses by the Danvers Historical Society, 11 Page Street, Louis George, Event Manager, for the 2023 Summer Beer Garden events at Glen Magna Farms, 29 Ingersoll Street, from 5:30 PM to 8:30 PM on the following dates, with rain dates to be the day following each event: Tuesday, June 20th, Tuesday, July 25th, and Tuesday, August 22nd.
Welcome, Mr. George.
Thank you. Good evening, I'm Louis George. I'm on behalf of the Danvers Historical Society. We're requesting a one-day license for our 2023 Summer Beer Gardens at Glen Magna Farms. I'm a member of the Board of Trustees, and I'm also chair of our Revenue and Events Committee. So this is the third year of this event, and we're planning to have 3 this year, was mentioned. So June 20th, July 25th, and August 22nd, with a rain date the day following. And really, this has been a fun event to help introduce the society to really to new people, to neighbors, to families who haven't necessarily been on grounds at Glen Magna or been aware of the Historical Society. We have a lot of exciting things this year. For example, at the Derby Summer House, also known as the McIntyre Tea House, we just recently had the Milkmaid and the Reaper statues just replaced on the top. And so society has a lot of exciting things this year. So it gives us a good opportunity to really let a whole new group of people discover the Historical Society and discover Glen Magna as well. The event's it's accessible. It's a $10 entry fee through Eventbrite or at the gate. We'll have craft beers and ciders, as well as soda and water. Vinwood Catering will be providing pretzels and sausages. There'll be a pretzel and a sausage cart. We'll also have snacks and chips. There'll be music at the events as well. So there'll be currently planned, we'll have open mic in June and 2 local bands in July and August. Stroke of Luck in July and Decades of Rock in August. As far as logistics, I'm the event manager. I'm also TIP certified since 2021. So I'm the primary manager. We have several alternates who are also TIP certified. You should have in your materials Heather Palm, who's our Director of Marketing Events at Glen Magna, as well as Paige Plord, who's a Senior Event Manager. Anyone who does serve alcohol is TIP certified. As for control as well, anyone who wants to drink will receive a fluorescent wristband. And in order to get a wristband, you do need to show your ID. So we do 100% ID check at the gate for receiving a wristband in order to drink. So from age 25 to age 75. And if sometimes people ask, we just say, pretend you're at Fenway. And so that's where we generally, that's how we do it. We just find it's easier to do it for everybody. The bar tent is just off of sort of the main field in front of the porch, so there's a good view of the area. We also do have volunteers who are walking around, keeping an eye on things, making sure everyone's having a good time, and making sure people are safe, making sure, kids don't climb the 100-year-old trees, that sort of thing as well. So we're looking forward to it, and I'm happy to entertain any questions.
Thank you, Lou. Matt, any questions or comments?
Just, it's a fun time. Very pleasant evening out on the lawn. I would just mention that bring a lawn chair or a blanket, but a chair is better. I wish you success.
That's an excellent suggestion. Thank you.
Thank you, Matt. Maureen, any
Thank you
questions?
for organizing again. Looking forward to it. Thank you.
Thank you, Maureen. Dan?
Well, as Vice President of the Historic Society, I have no questions. Lou presented everything properly, and I'll be abstaining from voting.
Thank you, Dan. Guard?
I am a direct participant in this. I'm going to also abstain from voting.
Well, that's the three of us have the power down here. This is a public hearing.
No, it's not.
It's not?
No.
Oh, it is not a public hearing, so you have nothing to add to this. So it's just a vote on?
Unless, just a vote only.
Oh, you can't vote.
We can't do anything.
So, Maureen, is there a motion?
I will make the motion that, what are we doing right here? Consider the 3 applications for a I can't really say, one-day wine and malt beverage license, or can I just say I'll make a motion for
As
the event?
presented.
How's that?
Just say as presented.
Because I can't say, as presented, please.
Thank you, Maureen.
Thank you.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Matt. I guess all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So that is a unanimous vote of those who are able to vote. But before you leave, people in the room and online should know that your father, your mother probably didn't know, married this town for probably 40 years, was one of the most generous people for the interests of Danvers and the history of Danvers, and the apple don't fall far from the tree. Thank you, Louis.
Thank you very much. It's very, very, very kind of you. There's definitely been, Danvers has been I've been very, very happy to live in Danvers and grew up here, and it's a great community, and was welcoming to my grandparents when they came from Greece in the 1920s. So we've been very happy to be here, and it's just, it's very easy, and it's very easy to do this. So thank you.
Thank you, Louis. Good night. Good night to Ellen. Say hello.
The board
Where
will
are we?
consider 4 applications for one-day wine and malt beverage licenses by the Cellar Door, B. Taberi, and Bruce Flynn, event managers, for the 2023 Summer Concert Series on the lawn of the PB Institute Library, 15 Sylvan Street, from 5:30 p.m. to 8:30 p.m. on the following dates, with rain dates to be the day following each event. Wednesday, July 12th, Wednesday, July 19, Wednesday, August 2nd, and Wednesday, August 16.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Is there someone here to speak for the, hello? Please go to the podium and tell us about yourself and your proposal.
Hi, my name is B. Tiberi, and my husband and I own the Cellar Door in Ipswich.
Welcome, B.
Thank you. We've been open over 8 years now, and this is probably our 3rd season of doing off-site events where we pour wine and craft beer, mostly at Patton Homestead in Hamilton. We've done Hamilton Days downtown, a bunch in Ipswich as well. We've both been TIP certified since 2017, and we have 2 family members that are TIP certified also that work with Bruce or I are always there, and then one other person with us. But we love the Danvers events at the library and at Endicott Park, and so we had reached out to see if we could be involved, and we were welcome to participate in events.
Thank you, B. There may be some questions or
Yeah,
comments.
I'm happy to answer any questions.
Mr. Chairman, I get clarification through you to the clerk?
Oh, yeah, go, of course.
Is this in addition to what we approved before or instead of?
This is in addition to give more options.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chairman, if I might, there was a question at the last hearing about what the actual rain dates were, and the applicant didn't have that information at the time, and we went back, we approved it without the rain dates. And then after, in follow-up, they contacted the Recreation Department and have bring me back. In the event of a rain date, they want to use that. They're just tick and tying the questions I think you had actually asked.
Right, so what do you suggest, Gard?
I confirmed with the chair that the rain dates for Twisted Fate would be the same, would be the
Oh,
day
okay.
after. So the chair and I had worked through that. Rather than have that applicant come back again, the rain dates were clarified.
Okay.
Okay. Board members, are there questions on agenda item number 11?
Oh, we're on 10, so.
We're on 10?
Are we not?
We're on 11.
Oh, thank you. My mistake.
Now, is this is a public hearing?
No.
No, it isn't.
One days aren't.
All right.
I want to say something, David.
Yes, Maureen.
Danvers is welcoming, and we'd welcome you to bring your business here, too.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Maureen. And Matt, did you have any comments?
So, is it the process similar to the last agenda item where you'll check IDs, do a
Yeah.
wristband, that type of thing?
Absolutely.
And is there any, I don't recall, are there any constraints about where the patron can take the beverage? Can they walk the grounds with it, or is there some type of corral?
There is, right, at the,
I can clarify that.
yeah.
For the Twisted Fate event, starting last year, the board had approved the lawn area as the approved area of liquor service.
Okay.
So in this case, it would be the similar thing.
Okay, that's
She would
good.
still be responsible to make sure her people are, you know,
No,
not
that's
being
fine,
overserved.
yeah.
But yet the area of service is a little broader than a defined roped
I
off.
think the adults should be, be able to wander around the area and not be forced to sit within kind of a constrained spot, so. All right, that's all I have. Wish you success with your
Thank you.
event.
Thank you, Matt. Is it, we need a motion on?
Yeah, and I just wanted to make a comment. I had questions about the event. You said it's going to be serving both wine and craft beer? Okay.
Yes, and food, other food that we
And food
serve,
as
too.
well.
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay, no, that's fine. Good luck.
Thank you.
No. We don't need public comment on
No.
this? No? Anything else by board members? Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the application as presented for the 4 Wednesdays indicated.
Thank you, Dan.
Second.
And there's a second? All in favor?
Aye.
All
One
opposed?
abstain.
Oh.
I have a relationship to this event as well.
Oh, okay, thank you. So,
So it's 4-0.
then all available votes.
Aye.
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 It is a vote. Thank you.
Perfect, thank you.
Thank you.
Good luck.
Are we on 12 now?
Yes.
Yeah.
The board will consider 3 applications for one-day wine and malt beverage license by the Celador, B. Taberi, and Bruce Flynn, event managers, for a 2023 Paint and Sip Series at Endicott Park at 57 4th Street from 6 o'clock to 7:30 p.m. on the following dates: Saturday, June 17th, Friday, July 14th, and Saturday, August 5th.
Thank you. And B, this is also your application?
It is.
Could you
Yep.
explain this one, please?
So this is limited to 15 people. It's organized by Endicott Park personnel, and they just asked us to come and pour for the 1.5 hours. They are going to make sure that everyone who registers for the event is over 21, but we'll also check as well as a second insurance. But it's a paint and sip night that they're doing. They're selling tickets for it through Endicott Park.
Thank you. Matt, have you questions or comments?
Nope, sounds great.
Nothing.
No, I'm all set.
Thank you, Maureen.
Sounds great. Thank you.
Thank you, Maureen. Dan?
No, interesting. Good luck.
Thank you, Dan. Gard?
I have no questions, and I can vote on this one,
Okay. So.
unless you're hiring bands.
Oh, maybe.
Okay.
Motion to approve the
Motion to
application
approve
as
is-
presented.
Is there a
Second.
second? Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
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 All opposed? It is a vote. Thank you, B, for being with us tonight.
Thank you.
And Kathy, are we on number 13?
The board will hear a proposal to amend the parking rules and regulations.
Steve, do you want to introduce Aaron?
While he's doing the slow walk up to the podium, we had a
Mr.
presentation.
Mr. Paniton has been waiting patiently since 6:30 to
This is
hear,
true.
so we're
Well,
all
I'll be very
ready.
brief then. So what you received tonight was a track change version of the traffic rules and orders that incorporates the changes that were called out specifically at the last meeting that were related to the resident-only parking on the streets surrounding Essex Tech. So there are some other updates in here, mostly housekeeping, but we wanted to have a two-step process so that the board could spend some time thinking about the parking situation at the Tech, and then we invite Mr. Henry back to present the package to the board tonight.
Steve, are you asking for any action, official action, a vote by the board tonight?
If the board sees fit.
Okay, and Aaron is going to explain what it is and let us know what, if anything, he thinks the board should do by way of a vote.
Excellent, thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Board. I'm Aaron Henry, the town's Director of Land Use and Community Services, and I'm back here. We were here 3 weeks ago discussing one particular change in the proposed edits to the traffic rules and orders. But I also did want to summarize a few of the other things that we're including in this update. The primary purpose for starting this update was to address state-level changes regarding bicycles. Notably, in the last year and a half, the state has adopted some regulations related to e-assist devices or micro-mobility devices. What most people see around here is e-bikes, and we needed to catch up to that. In the work of doing that, we also came across the fact that the state, similar to our traffic rules and orders for motor vehicles, has similar regulations for pedestrians and cyclists in general. So that's really was the impetus of doing this, was moving those two pieces ahead and getting those into our book. You'll find those in the middle. I think they are roughly around page 19 for about the next 3 or 4 pages. That's all fresh language inserted from state model regulations. I did do I had a number of attempts at outreach for residents in town who I know are bike and pedestrian advocates to make sure that I got any feedback that that group might have. I reached out to Ingrid Berry, to several members of the to the Rail Trail Committee. I know they're not a bike committee per se, but I know there's a lot of advocates on that committee, and I wanted to make sure that we got this state regulation or state model properly calibrated for our community. So this, what you have before you, incorporates all of the feedback I've received from those groups. And really, it's pretty simple. We have the rules of the road for motor vehicles, and now we have some rules of the road if you're a cyclist and some rules of the road if you're a pedestrian. I know it's the Northeast, and we don't believe in using traffic lights and signals for all that stuff, but we do have regs that actually say you should do that. So that kind of strengthens our hand, and I think we now have a more complete set of rules and regulations for the use of our roadways. In addition to that, obviously, we were here 3 weeks ago to talk about the changes at Essex Tech or around Essex Tech, and I would want to point out one change since that meeting based on the feedback we had that night. We did make a small change. We had proposed originally that regulation would go into effect September 1. We backed that up to August 15th because their school starts usually before Labor Day. So we backed that up to August 15th. And we also created a small 2-hour parking zone in front of the Preston Street playground to ensure that we didn't inadvertently block access to the park. And that was a comment we received 3 weeks ago, and that was an excellent catch. The other big one that is in the book, it was in the version that we provided to you about a week ago with a note that it was a preliminary recommendation. Last week's Traffic Advisory Committee meeting affirmed the recommendation that we recommend creating Foster Street as a do not enter at its intersection with Elliott Street. Since the diversion of traffic because Bridge Street's out and redevelopment at the Cummings Center, I think that neighborhood has been experiencing a great deal of cut-through traffic as people try to avoid the queue. They take a right and head up Foster Street and come back down the other side to try to beat the light. We've spent probably 6+ months doing traffic counts, looking at that situation. We did an area survey of over 85 properties in that neighborhood, and the consensus there was a time-restricted do not enter just during the AM and PM peak would probably alleviate, the vast majority of the cut-through problems that that neighborhood is facing. So that is, I can affirm that last week DTAC did vote to make that recommendation to you. There's also just some minor changes and discrepancies. A couple years ago, we were before you with the last big edit to basically where we find a discrepancy between the book and signage on the ground, we move the book to the signage on the ground, figuring that no one's been complaining. So that must be what's right, and the book is just didn't catch up to the ground. So there's a couple of those in there in the back in the table. Those just things that usually Kathy Simon, our parking clerk, catches in the field and reports back to us. So those have been all incorporated in here. And then there was a few grammatical and formatting tweaks that happened. Microsoft Word loves to point out all of the squiggly lines and things, and so we caught a few minor grammatical changes. I would ask, as Mr. Mills requested, there's some formatting problems because I use track changes when I produce this document. There's a few things in here that reproduce poorly when you print out that track change version, so some of the internal references might show you in the draft in front of you that I'm trying to find an example, but it'll say like error, can't find this link. Obviously, if we move forward, those will be linked to the right thing. It's there, but it's trying to find something that's not there. So I would hopefully have the board's permission to make those corrections when we finally approve these and publish them.
Aaron, were you looking for a vote from the board tonight?
As Mr. Bartha intimated, if you need more time, you should take all the time you need, but in an ideal world, we would have your approval tonight, and then from here, should the board approve, we have to advertise these changes in the paper, so it would still take a couple of weeks for these changes to become legal, but ideally tonight, we would get a vote from the select board.
We'll go to public comment, but I think, Dan, you are the traffic representative from the board. Have you thoughts on what, if anything, we should do tonight?
Well, I do have some comments and thoughts. My comment first, sorry, I missed the meeting last week when you confirmed the Foster Street.
Yep.
So I'll get to that in due time. But I want to acknowledge they've changed their name again. Now they're the Transportation Advisory Committee.
Sorry.
That's what it says on the website. Aaron, I don't know if that's true or not.
Okay, I'll have to double check.
Check the
It
website.
seems to want to correct itself.
That's what you're called. But I want to thank, a lot of people have input into these discussions. The parking officer, police, fire, DPW, electric, engineering. We have a traffic consultant, staff, and Aaron. Did I miss anybody?
Yourself?
Well, I'm the liaison. I'm not voting.
Mr. Bradstreet?
Mr. Bradstreet, yes. So there's a lot of thought put into these requests from the neighbors, the residents, on those issues. And if we didn't have this traffic advisory committee to take these issues before they come to us, we'd never get anything done, Mr. Chairman. So I really applaud the commission for the work they do, the patience they have to work with the residents and make changes. So that's my comment. And when you're ready for questions, if anybody else has any comments, well, I have a few questions on the work in the book. And I also may suggest, if it's not improper to approve this on a first reading,
Okay.
and a second meeting, take the final vote after they do their corrections.
Sure.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I haven't had time to read through all of this, so I'd like to make a motion maybe for next meeting, that we have more time to review this, and maybe what Dan said, for a second look.
Okay, could you hold your motion until maybe
Yeah,
we'll
okay.
see what Matt and
Yeah,
what Gardner think on this?
Matt or I?
Are we going for questions first?
I don't know, where do we want to go next?
Judge Mills, I was just feeling some boring eye stare at me because I left out one key update that I should have pointed out earlier in my introductory, if I may. There is one section that's not changing, but I want to make sure that we put it on the table just so everyone is involved, is aware. When it comes to the penalties section, which I think in the document is towards the back, it's on page 25 of the marked up version.
Yeah.
We are not changing any of the fines associated with the book. However, what we have learned through this exercise is that the ticket book that the officers are using do not reflect this number. That will change after, should the board approve this. We will correct that. So the fines you're seeing in the book are correct. They are not changing. These have been adopted for some time. Unfortunately, what we've learned in this process is that the tickets on the ground have not reflected this price, this fee schedule. So we are changing that.
Could I ask again, Aaron, are you looking for a vote from this board tonight on this document?
As I said, ideally, we would get a vote tonight, but you have another meeting in June, and if the board needs the time to review and ask questions, happy to defer.
Again, your view on that and what action, if any, we could take tonight
Well,
that's competent?
So I defer to Dan as the liaison, and if we pass this, that doesn't mean it's finalized. They can come back to us. I mean, I got this Friday in my packet, so I went through it. I have a couple of questions. I don't know if that's what you want now?
Yeah.
From the, okay. So my questions, I'm glad you see how you handled Foster Street. It's on page 13. I actually have a question. I had one about the fines. And so on page 25 of what we have.
Yep.
And actually, if you turn to page 26, I see the consistency of $25 down the line, except for disabled parking, which is $300. But then the next one, you've eliminated failure to yield pedestrian across crosswalk and took out $200. Why is that?
That's a moving violation,
Okay.
not a parking violation.
Okay, great. And the other question I have is, a lot of these fines are detailed or were votes of town meeting for the zoning board, in the zoning bylaws. Do these, are the fines declared in the zoning bylaws? Because I do recall specifically talking about the handicap parking several years ago and maximizing it. And that was a vote at town meeting, I believe.
No,
I'd
it
have
was a
to
vote
look
of the
in-
board.
Was it?
I think it was a vote of the
Okay,
board.
all right. So I do know that in the zoning bylaws, there are fines
Correct.
detailed.
Yep.
They don't include these, or if they do, they match?
I don't believe they match. I think the zoning fines are for zoning violations on private property. These
Okay.
are for
Okay, great.
public fines for public parking.
I didn't see anything, and maybe it's not appropriate for, I don't know, I guess it's a dicey traffic rules and orders. Line of sight. I've often complained to DPW when they've presented to us that there are intersections with line of sights that are obstructed.
Yep.
Does that fall under traffic or under something else?
Little bit of both. So the traffic rules and order, as in the model that we get from the state,
Yeah.
has 20 feet, no parking here to corner. That is really a state law. Not every municipality has
Got it.
that, but
That's
the
parking.
rules
Yep.
say 20 feet from an intersection, no parking, and that creates a small site triangle. Our zoning bylaw has something somewhat similar in it for corner lot clearance. It's a little bit more specific that it's for corner lot clearance. The two rules are not exactly the same.
So my concern is specifically going on to 114, I think it's beside Lowe's, there's a McDonald's, but it has huge high hedges.
Yep.
So you can't see down 114 when you're allowed to take a right on red.
Yep.
Out of that
I would
road.
assume in
So-
that situation, we're going to be looking at the zoning bylaw for that, because the zoning
Okay.
bylaw is a bit more specific about not blocking the height from 3 feet to, I think it's 5 feet. And that's designed to kind of, you're in a vehicle
kinda wanna
window,
look
and
down.
that's where you got to be.
Okay.
So I can talk to the planning staff about that one in particular, but we can dive into that issue generally.
Yeah, I'm
moving
just wondering where
forward.
it lands. And maybe it's just one
Yeah,
of those that
it
lands in
can be a
both.
little bit of both,
Okay.
for better or for worse.
And then finally, one of my past requests, and it may or may not be, I didn't see it was addressed here. Ash Street changes speeds 4 times without to me, rhyme and reason. 20, 30, 25, 30, going from the police station down. That's not a long road, and I don't understand the inconsistency in speed limits on a specific street. I don't know if you could look at that or not.
We've generally, I understand what you're speaking to. The town over the years has petitioned the state for specific speed limit zones. Those are established by state rule. And the rules have changed over the years, so we have several neighborhoods that have speed limits that we're no longer allowed to adopt, the 20-mile-an-hour being the most obvious one. I don't know exactly what's going on Ash Street, but I can dig into that one.
Okay, those are the questions I came up with when I reviewed it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Matt, have you questions or comments?
I do, Mr. Chairman.
Please.
First, I want to preface my comments by saying I'm not prepared to vote on any type of approval for this document. I just received it in my packet on Friday, and it's not clear to me, looking at it over the weekend, about which sections were actually new. So perhaps we could get some type of abstract that kind of lists them separately, the changes, or at least a list of what pages could be determined. But I do have some questions for Mr. Henry. First, you mentioned earlier in your presentation about the parking up at Essex Tech. Is that incorporated in this document?
Yes.
Okay, and which article or
Well,
which section?
Last time we were here, I kind of cheated and put all of the changes relevant to what we were talking about on one piece of paper, so you could have them all handy.
Oh, okay.
Because as it falls in the book, the parking regulations go in the back, and then there was some language that's happening up front. So I'd need a little bit of time to tell you exactly where all of the little
Okay,
bits
that's not
are
really
happening.
important. I guess to make my point is, when you presented at I think our last meeting about a permitting policy with placards for residents, I had mentioned that there's other areas of town which have similar situations with employees parking in residential neighborhoods, all-day parking. So I was looking for some language that was scalable, right? So you weren't targeting a specific physical area of town, that it would be, it could be easily modified or easily understood to apply to different sections, similar to what Salem does. They have different zones for parking at Salem State, near commuter rail, near areas where there's high residential density. So I think that I was looking for something along those lines. And then you mentioned the bicycles and the e-bikes. For me personally, I find them problematic in close proximity to pedestrians, specifically on the rail trail, but also downtown. I see people riding e-bikes on the sidewalks in the square, and it's a very dangerous situation. If you come walking out of a business, you're not expecting someone on a bicycle to be, moving at 10 miles an hour. I mean, that's a recipe for serious injury. So I know the House passed the bill saying that e-bikes are considered to be not motorized vehicles. And this is probably passed by people that don't even ride bicycles. So e-bikes are a concern for me. So I would like do a deeper dive on that language. I don't know how that was, if you kind of obtained that verbiage from the state?
Yep, we echoed, so the state adopted 3 types of e-bikes based on
classes.
speed and whether they're throttled or pedal.
Yep.
So we're echoing that, and then anything over Class 3 is considered a motorized vehicle. That's basically a bike that has a throttle and can go over 28 miles per hour, if I'm recalling that off the top of my head. To your former point, and this is something that our old book did have in it that we did not change, we always have allowed cyclists to ride on sidewalks in Danvers. That's we're not suggesting a policy change there. What we do say now in these cycling regulations is that cycling on a sidewalk, in the presence or likely presence of pedestrians, you must ride your bicycle at pedestrian speeds. And I thought that was a decent, I mean, again, we had a rule that allowed it before with no caveat to it, and at least now our rule says if you're going to ride downtown on a sidewalk, you need to be riding, whether it's an e-bike or not, I mean, you need to be under control in that environment.
And I'm not talking about riding bicycles on sidewalks in general. I think in most places in town, it's not an issue. I think that bicycles should not be allowed on sidewalks downtown where the businesses were. You have a large number of pedestrians entering, exiting businesses. It it doesn't seem like it creates an atmosphere where everyone is safe. It just seems dangerous to me. People are not, when they leave in a store, they're not thinking to look for a bicycle, coming by. But
Agreed.
I know other towns prohibit bicycles in business districts for that reason. That's all I have right now, but again, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to kind of postpone any type of voting.
Thank you, Matt. I've heard from you and Maureen both the thought of holding this.
Yeah, and can I?
Sure.
Excuse me, Judge. And I like what Matt said, Aaron, too. Next time, maybe if we shade it or highlight it so we can see changes, within a lot of the strikeouts, I'm assuming they're errors. Some of them, like on some of the streets.
Strikeouts are deletes,
yeah.
underlines are insertions.
Okay, I see some strikeout, like just lines across it. And I, too, want to touch upon what Select Board Member Duggan has said. I love riding bikes. I mean, myself, but I think downtown, I'm concerned about safety too. Like you said, you walk out of Rocco's Pizza or something and, there's a bicycle right there. So maybe we could consider maybe putting some bike racks somewhere in town and just prohibit it, like you said, from just within the square. Maybe park it around.
I mean, these are your traffic rules and orders. If a majority of the board wishes to prohibit it, we'll do it.
I would just, in listening to some of the comments, I think these are important topics, but I would suggest the Traffic Advisory Committee would be the place to bring those ideas in terms of regulating bicycles in the downtown. The way that the process has worked is that those comments start there, and then they come before this board after they've been vetted by the committee that Dan mentioned, the traffic engineer, so that the recommendations are coming with input from the Traffic Advisory Committee. I'll take some of the blame. When we were discussing the cleanest way to present this, we thought track changes, underlining new language, striking existing language would be the cleanest way to do that. We're certainly open to ideas for a better way to present that. Just as a note, I think it sounds like there's work to be done regarding some of these issues that are being brought up, but I wouldn't delay the implementation of the changes that have been vetted to explore the additional topics. I think that the Traffic Advisory Committee can go right back to work looking at additional modifications. Certainly, there's no need to vote on them now, as Mr. Henry said, but I would encourage comments to go back through the Traffic Advisory Committee for consideration.
Okay, well, I kind of understand Aaron looking for a vote tonight on this. And Dan, what was your suggestion?
Well, if I may, can I get a clarification from Aaron on Foster Street, page 13? Sorry I missed the meeting, but
No.
in talking with some of the residents, they were of the opinion that this is something that's temporary, and you look at it again in 6 months.
Right. So this actually kind of speaks to a little bit of what Mr. Barther was just hinting at. The group had a discussion as, let's see how this goes. The problem is our rules and regulations don't allow us to do trial balloons for more than 30 days. So what we talked about was doing this for more like 6 months. We want to get through the summer and see how this affects things. and then reevaluate. And if necessary, we would return to the select board to say that worked or it didn't work.
Okay, I was just looking for clarification.
Yep.
That's fine. And if I may, Mr. Chairman, the issue of the spikes on the sidewalks is a good one to evaluate, separate from what we have in front of us. I think what we have in front of us is well thought out, well put together. There might be some tweaking needed, and I would like to make the motion that we approve it for a first reading, and then have the other board members have the opportunity to come back with comments and questions if they have some, and then we can take a final vote. But at least this way, it gives the planning department, the Transportation Advisory Committee, the ability to move forwards with what they have presented.
Thank you, Dan. That is a motion.
I'll
Is there a
second it.
second?
I'll second it.
Okay.
And
Now-
Mr. Chairman, I would say that I'm not sure what clarity the other members are looking for. Every change is enumerated by a bar on the right-hand side. Strikeouts indicate that they struck that language, and the new italicized or bolded language is the replacement language. Other than colorizing them, I'm not sure, everything from, for example, on page, everything about the new bicycle stuff that you got from the state, fantastic. Starting on page 20, indicates a long bar in all the new language. In other areas, it strikes out fines and replaces it with another fine. But again, with a bar on the right-hand or the left-hand side of the page. So if they.
So we have a motion and we have a second.
Well, can I just say something too, Mr. Chairman? I think that a couple of us just wanted a little bit more time to read through it because we got the packet just Friday afternoon.
I hear you.
That's, we just want to, so we can really, dig into it.
If I may, Mr. Chairman, the adopting on the first reading allows everybody to delve in to the need they feel necessary, and we take a final vote next time.
Good. My concern also is that there are some residents from the Aggie area who have been sitting here all night. How many people in the room have something to say about the proposed modifications to the document that we're talking about? Bob, you?
I have nothing to say. I came with the expectation of a vote tonight. That's why I anticipated you'd have the information from the last meeting with some revision. I thought it'd be a vote. I really have nothing to say, but thank you to the board.
Well, may I ask, now there are two of you from the Aggie,
There's 3 of us.
three.
Nobody from Foster Street, I thought they would be here, but they're not.
Are you comfortable with what is now here with respect to the problems that you have encountered with the Aggie parking?
I have no problem with what's there. My only concern is can it be done in time for September?
Okay,
August 15th.
August 15th.
and I see Aaron also wanting that to be. So, thank you, and thanks for sitting around tonight. There is a motion and a second. Is there further discussion on the motion? Time for a vote? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed?
No.
Okay, it is a vote, and we will, are you, Kathy, you got it all?
I
You know?
got that, yeah.
You got it all?
I do.
Okay.
I can go back and watch DCAT.
Thank you very much. Have a
Aaron.
good evening.
Thank you, neighbors, for being here.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Thank you.
Okay. Are we the next agenda?
45? Forget it.
I think Kathy's getting closer.
I control the whole thing. The board will discuss the draft climate.
What?
I don't know how, I have a remote right here you may want.
The next agenda item will be announced by the clerk.
Thank you. The board will discuss the draft climate action, sustainability, preservation, and resiliency Casper plan.
Thank you, Kathy.
Mr. Chairman, can I
Yes, Dan.
impose for a 3-minute break
Of course.
before we?
Sure.
Thank you.
suppose.
Madam Clerk, will you introduce the next item on the agenda?
The board will discuss the draft climate action, sustainability, preservation, and resiliency Casper plan.
Steve, would you like to introduce
Yeah,
the matter?
I would say a couple things. First, I'd introduce Clint Allen and Jeff Ellie from our electric department. And I would note, when Dan Bennett was chair and was cheering on this undertaking, we were able to secure funds to do this work. It's been a very long process, but a very thorough process. So just I would commend Member Bennett for leading on this. And certainly at this point, there's no action that is being asked for tonight, but staff wanted to come and present to the board what they've been working on with stakeholders and get some feedback.
Great, thank you, Steve.
Clint, will you introduce yourself,
Yes,
please?
yeah, so I'm Clint Allen, I'm the Assistant Utility Director for the Electric Division. I'm joined tonight with Jeff Ely, he's our Energy Resource Manager for the Electric Division. And tonight we're here to present the Casper plan that we've been working on in conjunction with a number of other groups and core members from the town, from all facets of the town. We'll get into that a little bit more. And we are here with the final plan, draft plan tonight that we just would like to run through the development of the plan, kind of the background of, you know, where the idea came, that Danvers needed to adopt a climate action plan, the formation of the plan. We'll actually step through the major components of it, and we'll give a high-level overview. I believe everybody received 100% recycled paper copy on Friday. So I think the intent would be tonight, we'd like to present, as Steve said, run through all the hard work that we've been doing and where we're at, and then really allow the board this summer to sort of digest that, because I mean, it is a 70-plus page document. We have an online component as well. So we would be looking just to run through it tonight, and then, you know, when reconvene in August, we could be looking for a formal adoption from the town.
Thank you, Clint.
All right. Is that my computer, Steve? All right, it's back. So first off, we'll step through the development of the plan.
Excuse me, Clint.
Yes.
Do people want the light off or on or off in the
I
room?
think it's probably okay with the front bank off.
The what? Is that all right?
Is that
Can
okay?
everyone see okay?
Yeah, that's fine.
Thank you.
Is that all right? Okay. So yeah, we'll go back to 2019. That was when, you know, the select board had identified the need that, you know, Danvers does need a plan of some type to address the various climate facing issues to the town, such as the municipal building energy efficiency, commercial and private sector energy efficiency, electrification. The transportation sector, as we'll get into, is a huge component of this. Additionally, you know, take a look at our residential efficiency and electrification programs, and then really take a look at, you know, what we're doing with our trash and recycling programs. Then in 2020, for some reason, everybody's minds was on other things. We didn't really get a lot of traction with the plan. I don't know if everybody remembers that. However, we were back in 2021, and the select board, Jeff and I came up to make the formal presentation that we were going to pursue drafting a formal plan. Select board had approved that with the following components. We wanted to look at the climate action, sustainability, preservation, resilience, and that was, well, the Casper plan. So Jeff and I began working with some of the other departments in town. We first began by looking at some other communities that had adopted similar plans. Here's just a handful of the ones that we really dug into. Of those, the Beverly Salem one we were very impressed with, and also Concord's was quite impressive, and they also tie more similarly to how Danvers is structured. They also have their own municipal light plant, so they have, you know, with the advantage of having your own electric utility, the town has a lot more ability to control where our electricity is purchased from versus, you know, a town that's subject to an investor-owned utility. So there was one commonality amongst all of these plans, and that was Kim Lundgren Associates. So they had either drafted or been on the drafting team for all the plans that we really liked. So we began conversations and had some meetings with KLA. We were very impressed with their work. They came highly recommended. Their big thing that we liked, well, there's one thing that I particularly liked from kind of an engineering background is they were different from a lot of the other consultants because they provided, they offered to provide an actual baseline greenhouse gas analysis for Danvers. So we will know the actual numbers of our contributions to greenhouse gas as a starting point, so we can have something to measure ourselves off as we make progress towards the future. A lot of the other plans we were looking at were just kind of cookbooks off the shelf, like this, if you do this, it will be better, but it doesn't really tell you what the impact is. So we liked that, and the other thing that they were head and shoulders above some of the other competition was their community engagement and adoption. And we'll see that a little bit more once we get into the planning process. So in 2022, we decided, we developed the roadmap. So step one for that was to perform the townwide GHG analysis that I had mentioned. The second biggest, huge portion of this is design an equitable engagement process for the town and the community at large. We wanted to make sure that, you know, the residents, business owners, town staff, everybody was going to have the opportunity to put input into this plan. We wanted to make sure that it was a comprehensive plan that met the needs of everybody. Step three was to actually draft the plan, which would consist of three main components. That's the baseline I had mentioned, the overall goals of how we want to reduce the greenhouse gas emissions, and then ultimately what are some actionable steps. Not just what can we do, but what is the actual procedural way of doing it. And then lastly, we wanted to make sure that we would, you know, this isn't just a document that the joke keeps going around. It's going to end up just, all right, we're done with this, we'll put it on the shelf. But we want to make sure that it stayed alive. So we have this online component. It's a dashboard. It is live now in a draft form, but it has the plan available, and it tracks the plan and progress as we make it going forward. So this was all going to be accomplished by creating an initiative, and that initiative is Resilient Danvers. Resilient Danvers is the foundation for partnership and dialogue between town staff and community members to identify solutions to the short and long-term impacts of climate change. The CASPER plan is the first outcome of our collective efforts. So Resilient Danvers is sort of the movement, if you want to think about it like that, and the CASPER plan is our first output. So within the CASPER plan, it includes the actions backed by technical assistance and community input to help reduce our contribution to climate change and create a more sustainable and healthy future for the town. Through this plan, we're committing to Danvers that offers something for everyone: clean, connected energy and transportation systems, affordable and livable neighborhoods, and a diverse and sustainable economy. So I just want to take a note of, I say this every time I get an opportunity, but is that not like the most perfectly framed picture for climate change initiative? It's got the electric vehicle, the American flag, town hall, it's like the charging station, it's just, I love that photo. All right. Oh. Where am I? Yeah, the mouse, I think it's set on double screen. That's okay.
You want to give me a wink, Clint? I can advance the slides for you over here.
Oh, but you can see my notes. Oh, there we go. Actually, can you go back two, please? There we go. Okay. So Danvers is already experiencing the harmful impacts of climate change. Increasing temperatures and precipitation in the Northeast is projected to continue creating hotter summers, warmer winters, more frequent droughts, and fewer but more intense stormy days. Our community is experiencing more extreme weather than in the past, with increased flooding and more frequent storms. As the number of extreme heat days and intense storms increases, so will the number of residents who experience related health impacts such as heat stress or asthma. Older adults, youth, and people with disabilities are especially vulnerable to negative health impacts. Addressing climate change today has the potential to enhance the health, safety, and quality of life of all the Danvers residents for tomorrow. The strategies in this plan align with the work that Danvers Electric and other town departments are doing. And as a municipal utility, as I mentioned before, we have the ability to transform energy and infrastructure systems for the town and lead the transition to a carbon-free future, simultaneously reducing greenhouse gas emissions and increasing the resilience of our infrastructure for our community. Please, nice. Successfully implementing the CASPER plan helps to fulfill both state and national level climate commitments. At the same time, action at the state and federal government will enable us to make better and faster progress through funding opportunities and new technologies. As they create new funding and programs that can support our plan, that's my fault. Oh, there we go. We will be ready to capture associated grants and technical support, such as funding from the Inflation Reduction Act, the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law, and the Massachusetts Green Communities Program. So I'll go to the technical analysis a little bit. There we go. So this is going back to the baseline that I had mentioned previously. It was important to create an actionable and data-driven climate action plan, and we needed to identify and understand the sources of greenhouse gas emissions here in Danvers. So first, we conducted a baseline inventory from 2019 to identify the largest sectors and sources of emissions, which are also the biggest opportunities to reduce those emissions and have a positive impact. The inventory was then used as a foundation to develop high-impact strategies and actions for the CASPER plan. And as we can see from these graphs, like as I alluded to, transportation makes up close to 50% of all the greenhouse gas emissions in town. Buildings comes in close second, and then finally the waste, you can see, is 10% of our total contribution. So, in addition to looking across the main sectors, we dove in a little bit more to the specifics. We wanted to look at the individual emissions that were identified and what specific activities were driving these emissions. Other large sources of emissions are the electricity and fuels we use to power the buildings. You can see the natural gas, the incinerated waste, and then you see the heating fuels, such as oil and propane, and then down the diesel fuels on the end. But still, again, just to really show it in the numbers, just the daily driving of unleaded fuel vehicles is the clear.
Clint, can I ask you a question on
Sure.
this slide?
Yeah.
What's fugitive natural gas?
That's like leaking gas.
The 110 leaks we have in town?
That we know of, and then even I'm sure everybody saw that in the news, but even your stove at home.
Yeah, they pick on gas.
They pick
stoves,
on the
right?
gas. Well, I'm not here to pick on the gas company. It's just numbers. This is the science part of
Okay,
it.
so fugitive is gas stoves as well as the gas stoves?
Correct,
Okay,
correct. And
thank
all
you.
believe known leaks. Yep. So now that we kind of have the baseline of where we're at, we mirrored our numbers up with the state's goals for 2015, where they want to be. Perfect. So that involved performing the pathways analysis. So decreasing our reliance on fossil fuels and reducing greenhouse gas emissions will require a lot of actions, but there's a few strategies that will be essential. Some of the key ones I just want to highlight now: expanding local rooftop solar, scaling up our solid waste diversion rate, reducing how much we commute in single occupancy vehicles, accelerate the transition to electric vehicles, and then to retrofit buildings to run on electricity rather than natural gas or oil or propane, while simultaneously, from the light department's perspective, transitioning our power supply portfolio to 100% carbon-free. So with these actions and others that are identified in the plan, you can see the potential impact we can have by 2050 to make an enormous reduction in how much greenhouse gas Danvers is emitting. So, community engagement. So this was, again, this is one of the core, one of the most important pieces of putting this plan together. We wanted to make sure that we had people with all different experiences and priorities and interests, and the way that they interact with Danvers or live within Danvers or work for Danvers, to make sure that we heard all of those voices. Mr. Bennett was part of our core advisory committee. So we know we had our core advisory was 26 people, and then when we expanded that out to the community, we had over 40 participants. So I was just very pleased with the response that we got from everybody. I think it was great. So the outreach again was, we were very happy with the outreach. And throughout the planning process, we engaged residents, the businesses, community organizers to understand and incorporate their diverse priorities. And to empower residents to help implement the CASPER plan going forward, we focused on growing a foundation on climate literacy, knowledge about the causes and solutions of climate change through community-wide survey, events, and educational materials. We said a number of volunteering events. Jeff, I know, worked at a number of them. We went through the Citizens Academy, had a big presentation. We really took any opportunity we could to engage the community and receive their feedback. And ultimately, the survey that went out, we received over 700 responses, which, according to everybody we talked to, was a really good number to hit. And then we got some preliminary feedback. So it looks like close to half the residents already try to save or conserve water at home. Over half are enthusiastic, or at least about potentially getting an electric vehicle the next time they need a new vehicle. And a wide majority supports the town pursuing clean, carbon-free electricity. Part of the survey was to stack up. We wanted to get an idea of where should the focus is for this plan. Really, where should we put our efforts? The top three were enhancing natural spaces, to go back to planting the trees from earlier tonight, water conservation efforts, and then the renewable energy projects. So we'll see if we get all right. So here was the actual, here was one of the events. We had 4 meetings of the advisory group. It was heavily, you can see from the Post-it notes on the board, they were a lot of engagement, and we got this, you get out of the chairs, we wanted people to participate, and we wanted, real feedback from, you can see the health inspector, director of inclusivity, and I always mess it up, DEA, chief of police, planning. We have, I think that's Jen in the background, assistant town manager. So we had a very good group. We were really happy with the level of participation that we got. And we met, this group met 4 times over the last year. So, and one of the outcomes from the focus groups were to first adopt our 6 focus areas. So each focus area represents an important aspect of the community that needs to be addressed in order to decrease greenhouse gas emissions. The planning process first identified the goals, strategy, and actions, and the key metrics. And I think now I'll turn it over to Jeff. So they're very detailed in the book. We'll just go kind of like a high level of this one.
Yeah. So I just wanted to go over each focus area, and so as you can see, we have energy. It's probably Clinton and our expertise in buildings, obviously. Natural resources, public health and safety, transportation and land use, and solid waste. Next. So each priority area has several goals, and you'll see them in their slides, and they're in your plan. They're very detailed, and they have actual actions that we can take. So I'll just go read the high level about some of the goals that we had, and then as you guys read into it, you can ask us questions either at the end of this presentation or later on before we adopt the plan. But our first goal is Danvers sources energy that is carbon-free and local. Second goal is Danvers strategically uses and stores energy to reduce carbon emissions and costs. And then thirdly, electricity infrastructure in Danvers is well prepared for weather-related disruptions and meets requirements for community electrification. That's more of a resilience-based goal. I'm just going to go through each area just so you get a high-level overview of kind of what we're thinking when we're thinking of these priority areas. For buildings in Danvers are designed, constructed, and maintained to be energy efficient and minimize greenhouse gas emissions. And so, these are all the things after it. Yes, and goal 2 is homes, businesses, and municipal buildings are resilient to the impacts of climate change. And so each goal will have actions underneath, and then further describe how we do those actions. So, for natural resources, all residents have equitable access to protected and enhanced parks, forests, and open spaces in Danvers. This gets to more of the equity piece of our consideration for the plan. Infrastructure and landscapes in Danvers support a healthy and diverse local ecosystem. Water infrastructure and resources are reliable, safe, and resilient to climate change. That speaks to some of the community's feedback on water conservation and that issue. Public health and safety. So of course we got those groups involved. And one of the goals is residents, businesses, and municipal operations are prepared to recover quickly from short-term shocks and long-term stressors. These are, again, resiliency considerations for public health and safety. And then for transportation and land use, a hot topic issue for the town, biggest greenhouse gas sector that came out of the plan. People in our community have more options to travel for work, school, and errands. Second goal is to development creates vibrant and healthy places. That's both downtown and in our neighborhoods. And then Danvers is an EV-ready and friendly community that speaks to electrification and electric vehicles and that sort of thing, both in the people adopting electric vehicles, but also being a community that provides charging and resources for those folks. For solid waste, the goal is businesses, households, and municipal operations and individuals minimize waste. Waste is managed responsibly across the community, and possible recycle and organic materials diverted from incineration. These are the actions to achieve those.
All right. Thanks, Jeff. So the last step of the plan is the implementation. So it's, we didn't want to just come up with a cookbook that we'll put on the shelf and have some high-level ideas of what we could do, but we wanted to have some actual actionable objectives that came out of the plan. So the 4 guiding principles for the plan were, obviously to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. Again, the equity and inclusivity of the process was incredibly important to us. As Jeff had just talked about, the community resilience is another huge pillar, and then ultimately the good governance and the management of the plan are the 4 kind of driving or guiding principles. So for an example of what these implementation blueprints look like, the plan, in fact, includes 56 of these. So these are tangible actions that we can commit to executing. The implementation blueprints outline how we will move a selection of these actions forward. Each blueprint indicates a champion who will lead the work, implementation steps with timeframes and key partners, as well as considerations that should be taken into account during implementation that align with the 4 guiding principles. As we begin to implement these actions, we wanted to make sure that we are tracking our progress and making it to the public. So again, these are in the book. They're about the last 30 pages, so it gets pretty detailed. It gets very gritty, but for tonight, we'll just show the one. So to track progress, this would be an example of something that you would be able to find on that dashboard. Across all 6 focus areas, we've identified some key metrics, and we're going to start, we're tracking them on a monthly and ultimately on an annual basis. We're matching up with the state guidelines of the 2030, 2040, and 2050 benchmark years. So as we'll track it in real time, we'll also perform a benchline analysis on those key deadlines. And so this is just a very condensed screenshot of what the dashboard looks like right now. It has the 6 core elements, and then it also has all the background. So it takes the plan and it breaks it out into all the core components for people to hopefully easily digest it and then easily track and monitor the town's progress. So the immediate next steps is not looking for a vote tonight. So we would like for the select board to review the final plan as recommended. And then also if you could check out the dashboard as well. We'd be looking for any feedback on that. We are going to work with the strategic Danvers group and make sure that as they press their plan into finalization, that we are staying aligned. We kind of saw this as like a parallel process almost. And again, that we'll reconvene late summer, early fall, and we'll be looking for a vote for the town to formally adopt the Casper plan for Danvers. And then once the plan is adopted, in the next 6 to 12 months, our first real tangible goal would work to get the 5 required criteria to become a designated green community. 290 out of the 351 communities in the Commonwealth already have this designation. And what this really does for us is it opens us up to a lot of grant money to help us follow the implementation blueprints and actually bring this plan to life. We're going to as Jeff mentioned, each of the 6 core areas has a designated champion. So the champions are going to stay together and work and continue working together and maintain a list of ready project ideas across those 6 areas, and make sure that we're keeping people engaged. You know, once it's approved, that's not really the end of it. It's kind of just the beginning. And then going forward, we're going to, you know, evaluate program budgets, you know, work at securing grants, secure resources so we can support the project ideas in the plan, starting with the upcoming budget cycle, and then, you know, subsequently going forward. Thank you. And also, if you have any questions, we'd be happy to answer them.
Well, members of the board, it's quite a lot for me to digest, and I'm sorry I hadn't read the plan before tonight. Nice job. Matt, do you have questions or comments at this point?
So this is a road, well, first, great presentation. It sounds like you had practiced it a few times, maybe.
A couple times.
Is this
Steve was a last-minute addition, though.
I did a lousy
On the
job.
cliff.
I really
Good
brought
job.
it down like three levels at least.
No, that's great. Is this a roadmap for the town, like, for the town government? And the residents can see and maybe incorporate some of the items into their personal lives? Is that a fair?
Yeah, exactly. So it's really provides the framework and gives us some of the actual, you know, the tangible things that we can do as a community, as the town, to start, you know, having a positive impact on Danvers, you know, additions to climate change.
We're in need, the town.
Right,
people
then-
in the town to
Right,
achieve
but a big part of that is, you know, we already have, like, through the electric division, we have a number of efficiency rebates and electrification rebates for customers. We're looking at bolstering those, you know, encouraging people to get, you know, electric air source heat pumps, get away from the oil and the natural gas. So yeah, the community engagement's going to be a huge component of it.
Right. So you're kind of like guiding us towards the light, so to speak.
I like that. Yep.
Well, it's great. It's, I think it will make the town stronger because we're being proactive, right? We're kind of not waiting for things to happen to us, that we're you know, we're kind of in sync with the state and federal government. I think they're championing the need for this, albeit it's kind of a little late, you know, but still better than just sitting back and not doing anything. But I think you picked the right consultant. The material is spot on. It's very professional and it's easy to comprehend with the pictures and the diagrams. It's not overwhelming. So kudos to you and your team.
Thank
you. That's all I have.
Thank you, Matt. Maureen, have you questions or comments?
I think it was great. I love this. This is really good. You guys put a lot of time and effort into it. The dashboard is online? Is that what it is? Okay,
Yep.
so the residents know that. You know, this is town-wide for our town. And I think when we said in the booklet how it said the education, the outreach, and the behavior changes, you know, we all have to adapt to that. You know, we're all creatures of habit, right? So I remember when recycling first came out, right? It was like, oh, God, here we got to get. Now it's like, what's that bottle doing in the trash? That's supposed to be in the recycle bin, you know? And I think it's really important that you really continuously keep people engaged, you know?
Agreed.
Stay in front of it, because that's the only way we're going to do it. Also, show people, I mean, I was reading in here about there's lots of rebates, so rebate awareness would be great, too. I really thoroughly enjoyed reading this. I really want to read more of it, too, you know, and
Good beach reading.
yeah,
So, yeah.
it's good, yeah,
Yeah.
thank you. No, it was a great presentation, thank you very much.
Maureen, thank you. Dan, well, this was kind of your brainchild.
Well, it wasn't a brainchild, but back in 2019, I attended a webinar or a forum and opened my eyes a little bit. And the fact that we weren't a green community got me to thinking, let's become a green community, which leads me to a question, Clint, given that we have a municipal electric, will we still be able to work and get that green community designation?
Yep.
Okay, because I've read a few places where some things we don't qualify because we're a municipal electric.
Yeah, the only thing that we actually have to do to qualify for that one stipulation is we have to create within our tariff, electric tariff, a conservation fund. And it would be like a very, very small portion. It's the same thing that Massive participants in National Grid and Eversource pay. They pay like it's a fraction of a penny.
Okay.
And it would go into a fund that's set up in our tariff, so we have access to money that would, for conservation programs.
So there's no roadblocks that we can't take care of?
Nope.
Okay. How will we adopt stretch building codes? Does that require a vote of
Aaron
this
still?
board, or just Aaron will say we're
Aaron
going to adopt
split
it?
as soon as he knew
He
that
got
was
out
going
of
to
here
come
at
up.
the
Yeah,
time.
but
But what is the process for doing that? Do you need our help?
that's a good question. I think we're going to have to work with planning and code administration and come up with a game plan.
Okay. I think that's an important piece with new construction, is it not?
Yes.
Okay.
It's a contentious topic.
Yes, it is.
And so we recognize that in the plan, and it was discussed during I think all four of those meetings, and the building inspector attended those meetings, so he's
Yep.
aware. So it's something that we need to.
So it's not going to be easy to adopt all these ideas. We're going to have to kind of circulate the wagon, so to speak, and get a lot of support from other areas.
I don't know of a lot of support, but it will require some.
Yep, okay. So, from my point of view as a select board member, I'd like to do anything we can when you talk about governance to help move forward. So it's just my thoughts. The big thing in reading it is the education piece. I think to educate the residents on, A, the need to cut down on greenhouse gases, and how can we help them absorb the expense to change their habits, their heating systems, get electric cars. That's a big piece of it, because it is going to cost the average ratepayer some funds to convert.
Sure.
And at my age, I'd like to convert, but what's the payback on going to electric heat pumps?
Yeah, that's something we're taking a look at. It's, as we mentioned, like even the Inflation Reduction Act, there's a significant amount of money put towards the electrification of the grid. We're starting to see the prices of those systems start to come back down.
They will.
And I think there will. There's going to be a balancing point where it's going to make economic sense for the customer. And from the electric division's perspective, we increased our heat pump rebates this year to be in line with the Mass Saves program, and we'll continue to do so as much as necessary to start to get people to really, for that to make sense for the pocketbook.
Right. And has Mass Save switched over to rebates for heat pumps, or they still push on the other rebates for natural gas and?
They're going more on the heat pumps.
They are
now.
doing
Yep.
more. Okay. And I guess the thing as a consumer, who do you go find to put these in that's qualified and that you can trust?
That's a very big concern. That's a very big concern, and I actually attended a heat pump training course, and I got a certification through a third party where I can now assess and make recommendations. We can't recommend any one installer, but we've definitely worked with and seen a list of installers that we can recommend to customers. I encourage customers to come to me first to review applications, discuss their home size and what heating concerns they have, review quotes, give my professional opinion on what they should do, and recommend the systems, and as well as qualify prospective heat pump systems for our rebate. we have efficiency requirements and sizing requirements for those. So that's all part of my job and part of what we offer to our customer, because ultimately it's similar with happening with solar. 7-8 years ago, we try to provide what's best and what serves our customers best.
I'm glad to hear that, because as a homeowner, where do you go to get the information? And if we can use Danvers Electric to get at least information and recommendation on the systems themselves will be very, very important, I think, going forward. So I'm glad to hear that. I look forward to you coming back, looking for approval. I'll reread this for a third time sometime over the summer, and sure I'll have a few other questions. I'm glad to hear that we're not going to put it on the shelf, that we actually have metrics we're going to measure and stay on top of it. And thank you very much for the work that both you did and everybody else that participated in this process. Thank you.
Thank you, Dan. Guard, do you have comments,
Sure.
questions?
The innovation I saw in this was the online dashboard to track progress. I think that's fantastic. It kind of keeps you honest. It's not a collecting dust on a shelf report, one and done. People can see the progress that's being made. And echo one of the things Dan said is, I know, because I looked it up, you can go and learn about the rebate program, the solar energy rebate program, and that's good, but I think that maybe we can broaden that to be more inclusive of, so you want to go solar, and kind of what are the steps to get you there, to then get you to the point of applying for the rebates, because I know what I don't know, or I don't know what I don't know, and there's just a lot of information out there, and a lot of it just seems a little sketchy to me, from the commercial side, from the social media side, you Google it, and it just looks like too good to be true. Something's happening here that I'm not perceiving and picking up on or digging into. So it's almost like, so if you want to go solar in Danvers, here are the things you should consider. Go to this trusted website to learn about the various types, the heat pump, what you can expect for your situation, if you have appropriate sunlight and so on and so forth, and equipment, what you would lay out for cash at the beginning, what your payback should be, kind of thing. I would consider Danvers Electric a trusted source, so I would want to hear what they say, without, obviously, you couldn't recommend a system, but what consumers should look for, kind of things. And maybe I'm asking the same question Dan did in from a different direction, so I apologize. But there are an awful lot of rebates that we can't enjoy as Danvers residents because we're in the municipal, Boston Gas, the Mass Electric has millions of subscribers, so pennies pile up for them. If we engage the program you were talking about earlier in the response to his, do we create a fund that is only Danvers based, or does it go to do we tap into that wider pool?
So we are mandated from the Department of Energy Resources that we need to set aside a certain amount of funds to provide efficiency and conservation programs. So we're already budgeting for that. So Jeff sits down, and every year we look at what do we want to focus on for our efficiency programs. As far as our offerings, I'd say we meet or exceed most of the Mass Saves programs. Okay. And we're always looking to kind of to strengthen those programs and make sure that we're giving the customers. Actually, tonight's meeting was really good. We touched on a lot of stuff. The e-bikes was the last one. That's our newest rebate that we're offering this summer. So we're always taking a look at what the customers are looking for and how we can help incentivize them to make more efficient choices.
But I think you had a specific question about the fund, where the
Right.
funds go.
Do we get to tap into?
No, it's what they're trying to do, I think, with that law is to make sure that you're putting money aside to allocate towards these goals. Not necessarily rebates, just towards conservation in general. And efficiency programs.
Yeah, but I was talking about like some of the programs you see that you look into it, and we aren't eligible because we're not part of the Mass Electric program or whatever. Like I said, they collect 1 million pennies a month from them. we don't collect that kind of number. And so do we get to tap into a larger pool that we're not? Or is it what we fund is really for, specifically for Danvers?
Yeah, that's how, it's what we.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then if we can just work on the administration of the rebates, that would be helpful.
Yes.
Thank you, those are my questions.
Thank you, Guy. Steve, is there anything else you want to say about this at this time? And any action requested from the board, other one, to do the homework and read it 4 or 5 times? Hello? Anything
All
else?
set? No, just to thank Jeff.
Thank you
for-
guys very much for your
presentation.
hard work and also for standing by this late hour and doing a great, easy, user-friendly presentation.
Well, thank you.
Thank
We're
you.
happy to be here.
Madam Clerk, will you introduce the town manager to report on various items of interest?
The town manager will report to the board on various items of interest.
Do I-
Mr. Town
Do I
Manager.
thank you both? Just a couple of updates. In addition to the upcoming board meetings at the bottom of the agenda, we will likely, we don't typically meet in July. We will likely need to convene a very brief meeting at some point in July. The finance director has indicated that we'll have to roll some bond anticipation notes for ongoing capital projects. Those are typically 15-minute
night, Clint.
meetings on a morning when we can find a quorum of the board to come. So we'll share some information at some point about that, probably in July, depending on the work with the financial, our financial advisor, and Mr. Conley. Just really 2 updates. One, we had another lovely Memorial Day program on Memorial Day. I'd like to call out and thank Kelly Reyes Teixeira, our Veteran Service Officer, and Dick Moody, the President of the Veterans Council, for organizing that. I especially enjoyed the speaker this year, retired firefighter Jim Simon. On an otherwise solemn day, I thought he did a really terrific job of talking about sort of the uplifting elements of serving, and talked about his experiences in the service, and the places he got to go and see, and the things he got to do. And I thought that the tone he struck was very nice. And the other event, I was at my spring conference, but the reports that I heard for the Pride celebration last week were equally positive. I'd like to thank Dee Joko and Jasmine Ramon for their work on that. And really a thank you to the Public Works Department for supporting both of those events, and the Public Safety departments for their broad participation in the Memorial Day Parade. It was a really nice turnout this year. So just wanted to acknowledge both of those recent community events. And I think that's it.
Thank you, Steve.
The board will consider consent calendar items as they appear below.
So moved.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. And
Correspondence, select board, new business, previous new public business, updates, and select board closing comments.
we're going to start. Matt, can you start us off, please?
Yeah, I'm all set, thank you.
Maureen, could you follow up, please?
Sure, David, thank you. First, I want to thank everybody that came before us to volunteer. I think that's wonderful that they want to be part of the community. I think this presentation, this climate action presentation was really good. It's something that we have to do, take a look at least for us, for our kids, our grandkids, moving forward. And then I still want to bring up, under the new business, when we had the retiree come in front of us. And I think, a while ago, we brought, concerns about employees leaving, and we were always talking about exit interviews. So I would like, as Judge Mills would say, under advisement, maybe we have a time that we put something on the calendar to talk about this a little bit more. The concerns of the people that have left, and talk about those exit interviews and the procedures and things like that, because we want to, you can't keep everybody happy, but when there seems like there's been a lot of people leaving, I think we've brought it up before, that we've been concerned about it. So if we could put something on the calendar, you know, to talk, that would be great. If it has to be under just executive session, or... I
Mr.
don't-
Chairman, may I respond in part to that? This topic has come up before. Personnel management is my responsibility. We have 315 employees. Our turnover rate is no different from anybody else's. And I would just note, I have offered multiple times to any member of this board who wants to meet with me to discuss any concerns they have. I'm happy to do that. Most have not taken me up on that offer, and frankly, it would be inappropriate to schedule an executive session for this topic, but I remain perfectly happy to speak to any board member who wishes to schedule some time to come speak to me.
Thank you, Steve.
Do you
Thank
think,
you.
excuse me, do you think that, like, we could get together as a group?
Nope,
And
that would
talk
be a
about it,
violation of the open
because-
meeting law, and I'd be happy to meet individually with anybody who has questions or concerns or comments.
Because it is a concern that we've brought before, you know. I don't know how, you know, to get these people maybe in the room.
Let me think about that, because if there's an executive session, I think I probably have to call it.
Right.
I don't think we're going to be discussing any individual employees in public. That's,
No,
As I said earlier, Mr.
but in
Chairman,
private.
Point of order, it's illegal for us to have an executive session without informing the people for whom we are speaking of.
So wouldn't we invite them?
If you have a concern about a specific person and want to talk about their behavior or their actions, by law, we have to cite that, and we have to give them the opportunity to bring counsel with them. I don't feel comfortable. I too agree with the fact that the Town Manager Act says specifically so that the town manager is responsible for all personnel issues. The only personnel issues the select board is responsible for is the town treasurer and the town manager. That's it.
Right.
It's outside our purview, legally, by our charter and by executive session law.
But I'm not saying, not to have it negative, you can always look at this, let's not look at it negative, look at it positive, where if we talk amongst ourselves because of what's been happening with exit interviews, or if they've been being done, or if they haven't been being done, you know, how can we take this information and look at better ways for our town to operate? You know, the town manager does a good job. I'm not saying anything negative against him. It could be good feedback, too.
But I think that we've had the discussion multiple times about, and you've asked and got answers multiple times about, do we do exit interviews? Yes, we do. Who does them? The town manager or the HR person who's responsible. We have a new HR person who's now responsible for HR, so I'm not sure how you talk about opportunities for improving a process that we're not party to. We are not party to the human resource.
No, but I
action.
just feel that, like, people have said they have not had exit interviews, too.
I think it's noted, Maureen, and you're quite appropriate to
Okay.
note it, that you are dissatisfied with reports that you have received from some former employees. You have repeatedly said that. I note it, and I will pay attention to it.
Thank you.
But otherwise, I think we're foreclosed from going any further on this. So I suggest that we move on to,
And I agree, David, other than to say, the town manager has been open and willing to talk to any one of us on a one-on-one basis about the situations that people report to us. There are three sides to every story. And he should have the opportunity to present his side, not in an open meeting, but to each of us individually if we have individual questions. So
But you haven't been concerned about
I
the
haven't. I've
turnover?
gone to him and I've talked to him about
there's
it.
no questions, you can go through the chair.
Thank you.
There's no cross-examination. Please, we had enough argument with someone on the airport commission, and I didn't really like all of that was going on, but I didn't say
Okay,
anything.
those are my
So,
comments.
thank you. Can we proceed to, Maureen, do you have other?
Other than that, the Memorial Day parade was wonderful. Kelly did do a great job. I want to thank all the volunteers that did all the setup, the DPW. And seeing all the kids and all the people was great. Even the old cars were great to see. Other than that, that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Maureen. Dan, did you have closing comments or any other thoughts or new business or?
Well, just to thank everybody that came out and watched the parade. And certainly the veterans that rode or walked, it was great that they could get out, be recognized, and be thanked for their service. And again, when you see a veteran, please thank them for their service.
Thank you, Dan. God, do you have
I
comments?
echo the same sentiments as everybody here about the Memorial Day Parade. It was well attended by spectators. I enjoyed Mr. Simon's speech as well, discussion as well. I also want to congratulate the town in celebrating the several Pride Month activities as of late, the Pride flag raising and the Color Night Purple event that happened. So I'm encouraged by our inclusion, move towards a more inclusive town, and that's it.
May I follow up on one of the?
Sure.
It was Light the Night Purple.
Light the Night, thank you.
But, and there's a reason for that. I'm glad there was a good turnout. There still were 2,260 opioid deaths last year
Yep.
in this state. Still too many.
Thank you, Dan. I would just make one comment, that the Danvers High School Marching Band is the best advertisement for the school budget, and I've seen it over and over again for, I don't know, almost 50, well, as long as we've had a marching band. They are terrific. I have nothing further. Steve, did you have anything else you wanted to add?
No, I'm all set.
Is there anything else, board members? Well, then I think that is there a motion to, how do we end this thing?
You have, either you can say the meeting's over, or you can ask for a motion. It's your choice.
The meeting is over, and thank you all for being here.